Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second night of the Mayor and City Council joint budget hearings. We are reconvening from last night. I won't read all of the text regarding hearings. However, I will start with just a little bit. The Mayor's budget hearings and joint with City Council are conducted pursuant to the codified ordinances of the City of York, Pennsylvania. Specifically, the Administrative Code Article 137.05A provides the city budget shall be prepared annually by the mayor with the assistance of the business administrator. In order to prepare the budget, the mayor shall require all department heads to submit requests for appropriations to him and to appear before him or such other officer as the mayor designates at a public hearing on such requests. City clerk shall also appear at such hearing and submit for incorporation into the budget the requests for appropriations for the use of council. And we heard from council last evening. This proceeding is a hearing, not a meeting. The distinction is significant for the process. A meeting is a gathering of interested persons for the purpose of discussion of matters of interest, such as a town meeting. In a more formal sense, a meeting is a gathering of a constituted body for the purpose of transacting business, as in the regular meetings of City Council for adopting ordinances and passing resolutions to guide the business of the city. A hearing is a formal proceeding for the purpose of a fact-finding to gather information to aid in decision-making. Information is gathered by this process of taking testimony. A hearing is not a forum for free-flowing discussion. With that, we will hear from our department heads and our managers and deputy directors. We will then have time for questions from me, and then questions from the budget team members, followed by questions from city council members, followed by questions from the public. And if you wish, Cliff, could you share with folks the process for questions from the community?
Sure. So anybody that's attending the meeting as an attendee, if you're called in over the phone and you would like to speak, you have to press *9 on your phone in order to raise your hand. Once you raise your hand and we let you know that you can now speak, you will have to press *6 in order to unmute your phone. If you're viewing this over Zoom on a computer, there's a button that says raise hand. You just click that and that'll raise your hand and signify to us that you would like to speak. And again, we'll then allow you to speak. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Cliff. Tonight's budget hearing will consist of the Departments of Economic and Community Development and of Public Works. Tomorrow we will hear from police and from the fire department. So I will kick us off here. For those that do not know, I am currently the acting director of the Department of Economic and Community Development. We are in the process of reviewing some applications that we received, and we look forward to having a new department head shortly. For now, I will review the work of the Department of Economic and Community Development. The Bureau serves as the lead advocate for citywide businesses and not-for-profit organizations, and serves as the liaison between the private nonprofit sector and government. It is the Bureau's job to negotiate redevelopment contracts for the city's redevelopment authority owned parcels so that the redevelopment is neighborhood appropriate and that the redevelopment authority has a reversion right to the parcel should the proposed redevelopment not occur. The Bureau works diligently to secure, The Bureau works diligently to secure state, federal, and other loans, as well as execute public relations and marketing initiatives while continuously advocating for proposed and existing businesses. It is the Bureau's vision to develop the city into a thriving business, residential, cultural, recreational, and tourist destination. This vision is fostering employment and educational opportunities, and increasing the value of the city's property tax base and fostering a thriving urban community. Over 2020, we've had many accomplishments, and we've been tasked with new work that had not been known to us before, or I should say expanded work due to COVID. We were able to secure $255,000 from CDBG and disperse that in $5,000 grants to 51 businesses throughout the city to support them for losses suffered due to COVID. We assisted in COVID-19 closures and waiver processes to over 180 city businesses at the immediate onset of the pandemic after the governor declared that certain businesses were to be open and were to be closed. We took on that initiative and helped support the governor here at the local level. We launched the Kiva York Hub, which provides zero interest loans to small businesses. We'll hear more about that later, but this is really important. We have set up a system where we can provide 0% loans to businesses here in our city, to small startup businesses and other businesses. And we'd love for more people to work with Cherie McFadden to take advantage of the Kiva loan, Kiva York Hub. We have been working in the opportunity zones. They have been promoted, and the department has entertained multiple prospects who are interested in opportunity zone investments. None have come to fruition in 2020, a difficult year for all businesses, but partially due to COVID-19. We believe that additional outreach and education to real estate professionals will bring investments to our opportunity zones. In 2020, the department, through the staffing of the RDA, worked diligently with the developers of the Northwest Triangle parcels, and we expect to see groundbreaking in the spring of 2021 to new development on this site. Furthermore, in conjunction with the RDA, the department was able to facilitate the transfer and demolition of the blighted Manna Pro feed mill adjacent to the York Fairgrounds at zero cost to the city or to the RDA. If you recall, that was a project that was an estimated $700,000 to tear down that mill, and we got it done at zero cost to the people of York or the people of Pennsylvania. The department contracted with the Incremental Development Alliance to bring educational workshops to York City and the entire South Central PA region that will educate and empower small developers regarding infill housing, small development opportunities, and basic skills about buying and redeveloping properties. For 2021, our goals and objectives, we continue to provide outreach assistance and support for our hundreds of small businesses throughout York City. This includes not only attraction of new businesses and assistance with permits, planning, and zoning, but also the retention and support of our existing businesses as we move forward to restore the local economy in a post-COVID world. Increase the visibility and access to the Kiva York Hub, as I had mentioned, and engage additional support and public knowledge about the opportunities for small, zero-interest loans to small businesses. Continue to work with the RDA and the Blighted Property Task Force to reduce blight throughout the city and return blighted and vacant properties to the tax rolls and to a productive use. Continue work throughout the Salem Square neighborhood and generally the southwestern portion of the city to secure HUD choice funding and provide transformative change to the entire neighborhood through improvements to housing, educational opportunities, safety, and quality of life issues. And just as an addition to that, that program that we are working on, the Choice Neighborhoods Awards, is also now reaching out to the east side of the city as well. So this is a broad city improvement effort, potentially $30 to $35 million to assist in the redevelopment of the city of York. And with that, we can turn to our budget. And I will have to ask the budget team where the revenues have been transferred to for the Department of Economic and Community Development. We see in the former years, we had aligned or had put budgeted revenues in these columns. Is there someone from the team who can supply this?
Cherie, are you on?
Cliff needs to allow her to talk.
Is that you, Sheree?
Yep.
You might need to press *6 in order to unmute yourself.
Having some technical difficulty there.
Tom, I believe that wasn't the public-private contributions what we were getting from WellSpan for the community ecosystems program?
Yes, the $125,000, that would be that, and we have not received any confirmation from WellSpan that they're going to be giving any type of donation for that program in 2021 as of today.
Okay, very good. I've had verbal discussions where they have agreed, but we have not gotten any written agreement from them, is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Sheree, are you there? Is that your phone number ending in 223?
22, yes.
Okay, then you're good to go.
All right.
Oh, and the interfund transfer, the $60,000, that was something that I worked out with the RDA to help pay for staff time. And although I have that expectation that that will occur, we have not had that conversation yet. So that's where that other money went. So we may have some more revenue stream coming in there. Other than that, I believe that the only big change is the benefits, which is just a realigning of where the allocations are going throughout the budget due to the new budget software. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I have no questions for myself. Does the budget team have any questions?
I had a question.
What's that?
As part of I had a question, Allison Frost, as part of the budget team.
Yes.
Just scrolling back up, I think, Kim, you have control. Yes. Stopping at salaries. I see that went up.
No, it went down from 367 to 360.
Am I on payroll? Okay, yes, part-time employees went down, but salaries, wages?
Let me take a look and I'll get back to you. I got nothing off the top of my head, but I'm sure I'll be able to explain it.
Okay, yeah, because that went up, and then I know we had talked last night how some positions switched and shifted from this department to the mayor's department, but those salaries also went up.
Kim, I think in Econ Dev, we budgeted for a director salary that's in line with other directors, if I remember correctly.
That is exactly what it is.
Yeah. So when Philip Given was acting director, he was working at a rate approximately $20,000 less than the going rate.
What's the going rate?
It's in the mid 90s. Is that right? Low 90s?
Yes, I think we budgeted 100,000 for this position in 2021, Mayor.
Yeah, as we seek again, yeah, you're talking about $25,000 to $30,000 less than the going rate, I believe that Mr. Given was working for. So as we go out to the a broad search, we're going to have to pay more for talent.
Okay. So then his salary shifted or stayed?
No, his salary returned. So the way I changed something when I came into office, because what was happening was people were getting put into acting positions and their salaries were going up. And then when they went back to a different position, their salaries were maintained. And I did not think that was a reasonable way to do things. So when people were acting, they continued to get their base salary, but they got the difference in essentially a bonus salary for doing that additional work. That way, when they weren't doing that acting position anymore, that money got taken away and they returned back to their original salary.
Okay.
So if I'm not mistaken, it's Mr. Given is making between $14,000 and $18,000 less than he made as the acting director.
Kim, can you answer that?
Oh, yes, that's correct.
You said he's making about 14,000 less now, or?
Correct.
Yeah, it's probably a lot more than that.
Yeah, that's at 14 to 18, somewhere around there.
Than what he was as acting. Yes, he did have the acting pay that brought him up that amount, and then that was taken away from him, and then his position was put back into the mayor's budget. Mhm.
Budget. Okay. Okay.
And then so his pay at the acting amount, including the acting amount, was budgeted for 2020, which was still lower than what is in there now for a replacement.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes. And just so you know, part of me being the interim director right now is an effort at cost savings because of the $3 million loss of because of COVID. So I figured just run out the last 3 months or 4 months as the director instead of putting someone in a year that we don't even have the money to pay the bills. Are there any other questions from the budget team?
Not right now.
Are there any questions from council? Are there any questions from the community?
We have one. Ryan, if you can go ahead and unmute.
Welcome, Ryan.
Hey, I just had a question about like the salaries and wages, part-time employees. Does it go further down, like to break it to tell you how many people are in each one, or is that just?
The final budget will, Ryan, but the final budget that we will submit, if I'm not speaking out of turn, I believe Mr. Ray and Ms. Robertson, we will have the normal employee sheets in the budget when it's submitted to council.
Yes.
Okay, because like I saw like the newspaper was posting about like certain reductions of certain people, and it's like, well, I'm looking at the numbers and I don't really know how many people are in each department off the salaries.
That will be submitted on November 17th when we submit the full budget.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the community?
We got one more. Matt, you may unmute.
Hi,
Welcome,
Mr.
Matt.
Hi, I just had a question about the increase in expenses. So it's about a $270,000 increase for your expenses. Could you expand on that?
That I believe is right there under Kim. You can explain that. This is the fringe benefits. So this program that we are using now to budget keeps better track of the allocations. Kim, do you have something more on that?
Yeah, we also have an additional the loan payment that we've only paying interest on for the last 10 years or so. Now we owe the whole principal in 2021.
Is that the Crispus Attucks loan?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, here we're having an issue and we're meeting with the state regarding this. This is a loan that was made to Crispus Attucks that is now being called by the state. It is time for it to be repaid, and we haven't been in agreement yet on how that is going to get repaid. So we are working with Crispus Attucks and the state to determine a solution to this problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the community? Hearing none, I believe it may be Chief Buffington, your turn.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very briefly, some accomplishments for permits, planning, and zoning in 2020. We were able to complete the planning process to bring all the tenant occupied licensing and inspection back in-house to the city, resulting in projections for 2021 that will make permits, planning, and zoning self-sufficient budget-wise. We implemented safety protocols for our staff to enable us to continue to provide the services that we need to provide to the community during the COVID crisis. Our inspectors are back out there conducting the portion of tenant occupied inspections that we were committed to do this year, as well as dealing with the many complaints that come into the office. For 2021, our primary goal is to ensure a smooth transition of the tenant occupied property process back to the city. As a part of that, we want to develop and implement in-service training program for our inspectors to continue to provide quality inspection services to our property owners and to the tenants in the city. And our budget, moving on to the budget highlights for next year, although our expenses will show that they've increased by approximately $460,000, our revenue will have increased by $780,000. And that's a result of the transition of tenant occupied property licensing and inspections being done by the city solely.
Thank you, Chief. And yes, for those that have been paying attention for a few years, the inspections were outsourced from the city of York. And while that may have helped on a few issues, it also drastically reduced the revenue coming into the city of York. So over the past about 2.5 years, I would say, Chief, we have brought these inspections back in. And now in 2021, we should be 100% able to do all of the inspections here and bring that extra approximately, what was it, $300,000 of revenue back into the city of York.
Yes, sir.
I have no questions. Budget team? Members of council? And questions from the community? Hearing none, thank you very much, Chief Buffington. Now we will move on to the Bureau of Health. Ms. Barbara Kovacs.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor, council members, and all my esteemed colleagues here on the screen. It's great to see your faces. The Bureau of Health's mission is to protect and promote the health and well-being of York City. And we accomplish this with a dedicated staff of 21 people who are focused on core public health services, such as immunizations, communicable disease monitoring and investigations, maternal and child home visits, and TB, STD, and HIV testing and treatment. We also implement a variety of community health programs and collaborative initiatives, including those that improve health, healthy food access, prevent substance abuse, promote physical activity, prevent injury, stress, and trauma, reduce lead exposures through healthy housing programs, and overall supporting York City's efforts to be a safe, healthy, and resilient community. In a typical year, this is public health at its core and what we do well, but 2020 was not a typical year for us. We prepared for COVID and how we were going to respond when news of its impact started circulating. And on March 20th, when we received our first case, our operations at the Bureau changed dramatically. Staff were pulled from their daily work to rapidly deploy to our Health Command Center here at City Hall and to quickly work to contain and mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in the city. Staff used the skills they were trained for and experienced in to conduct case investigations, to provide guidance to residents on quarantine and isolation protocols, and to develop and enhance our data collection and reporting capabilities. This was very crucial in the early stages of the pandemic so that we could identify trends and the communities impacted by the disease and to target our responses accordingly. So now if we move fast forward to today, months into the pandemic, my staff continue to respond to all case reports as efficiently and effectively as possible. As of today, we have responded to 1,050 positive case reports in the city and have made over 2,300 calls to contacts with the help of 4 contracted individuals. But the staff are getting tired and stressed from the long days and weekends of providing an effective and timely response during this extended public health emergency. Typically, emergency response operations are for a temporary period of time. And in this case, we are continually adapting to find sustainable ways to continue our response if the COVID pandemic persists. I would also add that many of the staff are juggling COVID work in addition to their normal activities and responsibilities to continue to provide public health programs and services in the city of York that were crucial prior to the pandemic and even more critical now for our community. Fortunately, the Pennsylvania Department of Health secured funding through the CDC Cooperative Agreement and CARES Act funding for the 10 local health departments in the Commonwealth to focus on our emergency response and surveillance efforts and to address specific community needs as a result of COVID-19. The Bureau will receive a total of almost $4 million for this response and has specific activities for its use, including setting up and managing our Operations and Response Center, providing PPE to first responders and staff, conducting case investigations and contact tracing, improving testing and lab capacity, providing communication to vulnerable populations and wraparound services for those impacted, and then to promote, plan for, and implement COVID vaccinations to the public. The majority of these funds are earmarked to build our Bureau's capacity for a comprehensive COVID response and to improve our overall public health capabilities. Prior to COVID, the Bureau planned to hire key public health positions to build our infrastructure as part of our strategic plan. But with COVID, these positions are even more critical now to assist with response efforts. As I stated earlier, this prolonged pandemic response is wearing on my staff, so these key positions will take some of the burden off of them and improve and sustain our overall COVID response. So while COVID funding and activities account for the large increase in our 2021 budget and services, our existing program budgets and associated activities have not changed. We were able to modify our work and keep staff and residents safe while continuing to provide high quality public health services and supporting individuals and families. Because public health problems like the need to test and treat for STDs, investigate communicable disease, treat active TB, address food security, substance abuse, and mental health issues, and on, these things don't stop even during a pandemic. So our goals for 2021 are luckily not all COVID related. So I wanted to touch on a few of the highlights for those. So first, we plan to expand our capacity to provide a comprehensive public health response to COVID-19 by filling these key public health positions. Second, develop and coordinate a task force with partner organizations focused on adverse childhood experiences, community level stress and trauma, and promoting resiliency. Third is to integrate a community health worker model into the City of York's community outreach activities. Increase workforce capacity to focus on core public health functions, including epidemiology and surveillance, research and evaluation, health communications, public health preparedness, and environmental health. And finally, to promote health equity in York City by ensuring that health disparities are addressed by all public health programs, services, and initiatives wherever possible. So for our budget revenue for 2020, as mentioned earlier, we have secured additional COVID-19 funding totaling $3,994,057, with some of those funds extending through June of 2023. We have just recently received some of our contract agreements and funding notices, so I expect that some adjustments may need to be made to the draft proposed budget before it's finalized. Our existing grant funds for community health, clinical, and environmental health programs remain stable and secure for the 21 budget as well. Some major highlights in our expenses for 2021 are an increase in expenses due to COVID-19 related activities, including staffing, contracted services, supplies, and other things. Increased program expenses in the contractual services and supply items due to unspent personnel funds with vacant positions during the first part of the contract fiscal year that began July 1st, 2020, resulting in carryovers from the 2020 budget to the 2021 budget. And finally, we're hoping to be very successful in our recruiting efforts for our new positions through COVID funds, which will hopefully reduce the amount of personnel costs that we'll have to shift to contractual or other line items in order not to leave any unspent funds on the table. So I'll stop there and see if anyone has questions for me. And Craig is also on the line just in case there's questions for him as well.
First, I just want to thank you and your staff for everything that you've done to help protect the people of the city of York. When many of us were working from home or just popping in for a couple of minutes, your folks were working overtime and every day, reaching out and communicating with those most in need, people that were scared, people that didn't understand what was happening. And you just all did an amazing, amazing job. And I really do thank you.
Thank you. That's great to hear.
One thing I was happy to see in this budget that I think I'm reading correctly, as you know, whether it was on council or more currently as mayor, I've always supported the Bureau of Health based on their efficiency, based on their ability to use a limited amount of local tax dollars and turn that into services worth exponentially more than what we were paying as a community. And now that we have this new software, I'm seeing a nice pie chart here in front of me that looks like it says that the...
Mayor, I can't hear you very well.
I'm sorry, I leaned right on the microphone. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I think with this new software, I'm seeing a pie chart that shows that the local government is only providing 5.2% of the revenue to the Bureau of Health. Is that correct?
I would believe that to be true.
Am I reading that right, Kim?
No. I believe so. What's the title of the pie chart?
It's Health 413, Revenue by Type, Intergovernmental.
Yes, I will share that in 1 second.
And my point for bringing this up is that I've always felt that it was a good investment based on the fact that we were usually paying, I think, between 10 and 18% of the budget through our taxes. And so we were always getting about 5 times more services than we were actually paying for. But now it looks like we're getting about 20 times more services than we as taxpayers are paying for. So I know that some of that is kind of skewed because of the COVID money, and you won't always be expected to keep up at this pace. But I do want to thank you and I wanted to make sure that in this very difficult budget, when in past years, the Bureau of Health, people questioned the existence of the Bureau of Health because, as was pointed out, we are one of only 10 in the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is a voluntary effort for the city of York. This is not required by law, but you can see And you could see, as a person who was watching the numbers of all through COVID, you could see what a difference it made for us to have a local Department of Health, for us to have local workers on the ground that were doing contact tracing before people were talking about contact tracing.
Right.
And people that were in meetings in January about this when it didn't even hit York until March. So I just want to, I can't say enough for my enthusiasm for the Bureau of Health, and my thanks for all the work you're doing. And as a money guy, seeing now that we're getting 20 times the amount of services for the amount that we are investing. So I have no questions on your budget. Budget team, are there any other questions on the budget?
Yes, I have a couple questions. Barb, you had mentioned new positions. How many are you anticipating?
Craig, help me here. I think it's 7 new positions.
Are they full-time, part-time?
Most of them are full-time.
And these are 100% grant funded positions, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And
So-
it's the COVID grant funding?
Yes, it was with COVID funding.
And this might be a tough question, but I have to ask, because I know we're all hoping that COVID does eventually go away. Is there a sustainability plan in place for those positions? Or are these positions just strictly because of COVID?
Well, COVID is helping to bring them on board. Knowing that the COVID funding is a temporary funding, we're hoping that other funding will come along to be able to continue to keep them, knowing that, you know, this might just be temporary till the end of the funding. These are positions that a public health department, a large county health department would have in place anyway, like an epidemiologist, the nursing position, FEP coordinator, maybe not a COVID manager, but some of the positions are positions that should be in a health department to have a real good comprehensive public health approach to the work that we do. So we'll be looking at other ways that we can sustain some of those positions if we can with other funding that we have, and hopefully, you know, we'll be able to keep them on board at, you know, when the COVID funding ends.
So it would be safe to assume that with looking for other funding, that with the mayor mentioning the percentage that the city contributes, that there'd be other funding versus then coming to the city and hoping for funding to keep those positions?
Correct.
I'm not sure that I understood that question.
Well, Barb, you're creating potentially 7 new positions, and knowing that we have an influx of COVID money, we know COVID money won't always be there. So from what I was gathering with Barb, and Barb, please correct me if I'm not understanding correctly, the goal would be, sorry, I have dogs. The goal would be to look for grant funding to help sustain those positions.
Yes.
So that means that the Health Bureau wouldn't be looking to the city to sustain those positions. That's what I'm clarifying.
Correct.
I'm
Right
making
now-
statements that I just am seeking clarification.
Yes, since Dr. Hawk retired in 2015, I think it was, general fund has not supported any of our salaries.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Allison, I was just going to note that when we're recruiting for these positions, it is noted on the posting that the grant is a grant funded position with an end date of December 31st, 2022.
You said 2022?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Thank
actually,
you.
the large grant we're getting is till June 2023.
So we will be posting that, and it will be very upfront from the get-go that these are grant funded. This is the current funding. And unless, you know, other funding comes into play, this position will be eliminated when the grant funding ends.
Correct.
Okay. So that would be the epidemiologists, potential nurses, et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's unfortunate, but yes,
Mhm.
that's a potential.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
And Allison, just to add to the responses here,
Mhm.
for a position like an epidemiologist or those other core functions that Barb described, we've also kind of done some projections already, where even if additional funding streams aren't found, there's a few select positions that we can forecast that we'd be able to reabsorb into our current budgets for those real
Okay.
critical positions.
Mhm.
And then as Kim mentioned, some of the other ones that are very COVID specific have the timeline, which when it comes to public health program jobs is pretty commonplace actually to see, time-bound limits based on the grant funding.
Mhm.
Budgets for those real critical positions. And then as Kim mentioned,
Sorry, was that a question?
Welcome to the second. Nope, I think some folks have to go on mute though, because there's feedback coming back into the system here.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions from the budget team? Do we have any other questions from City Council? And questions from the community?
We have one. Ryan, you may unmute.
Yeah, I was just curious if the county goes forward with a health department, what could that jeopardize for the current funding streams if they're already allocated now, but say for reapplication for 2023 or the other one for 2022? Would the county get priority or would it still go to the city?
Currently, the contract is with the city of York, so the city would, to my knowledge, unless I don't know something, the city would maintain those grants unless they make some kind of agreement with the county to transfer that funding over there. So that's beyond my pay grade to do that. But I think that would have to be a discussion had at the administrative level as well as, with the county commissioners on what would happen. But right now, the funding is for the city of York.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan. Any other questions from the community? All right, hearing none, we have Mr. James Crosby up next with the Bureau of Housing Services.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. Our Bureau of Housing Services is the steward of community development block grant and home funds the city receives from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. We have been a HUD participating jurisdiction since 1994, which has enabled our city to receive CDBG and home funding through formula allocation. The Bureau is entirely funded from these sources. We receive no funding from the city general fund. This Bureau is comprised of 2 1/3 employees, and its primary responsibilities are the planning, management, allocation, compliance, and tracking and reporting on both the Community Development Block Grant and the Home Investment Partnership Grant. In 2020, the city received an allocation of $1,512,191 in CDBG funding and $544,081 in home funding through formula allocation from HUD. This marked a $33,597 increase in CDBG funding and a $75,315 increase in home funding from the previous year. The increases were unexpected because the mood in DC has been to decrease or eliminate funding for these programs. Each year, the city of York must submit an annual action plan to HUD identifying the programs and activities for that particular fiscal year. The annual action plan goes through a formal development process. It is vetted by a citizens advisory committee and ultimately receives the review and endorsement of city council. Both sets of funding must be committed and utilized within a prescribed timeline set forth by HUD. Both programs require a very arduous compliance monitoring and reporting system, and both are audited annually. Because these funds are allocated and committed annually, but not necessarily spent annually, we carry unspent allocations in our program budget and roll over unused portions through the grant contract period. Some highlights from the investment of these funds in 2020 include, but are not limited to, the following. 200 patients in our community receive services and our high-risk pregnant women program by our Health Bureau. Community First Fund in 2020 worked with 127 individuals and small businesses providing capital and technical assistance. Utilizing CDBG and home funding jointly, the City of York provides free homebuyer workshops and counseling to income-eligible city residents. Down payment and closing cost assistance is also available for income-eligible first-time home buyers completing the homebuyer workshops and purchasing a home in the City of York. In 2020, some 174 participants completed the homebuyer counseling workshops, and 11 homes have been purchased by first-time home buyers utilizing our city assistance. CDBG funds are also utilized to invest in our infrastructure. In 2020, 3 streets have been repaved, and we have replaced the air filtration system at Kiwanis Lake. We will continue to identify and fund projects that improve the infrastructure throughout the City of York. We recognize that to send the signal that we want others to invest in our city, so too must we invest in our curb appeal and infrastructure. By utilizing a small amount of CDBG funding, we are able to have an impact in our neighborhoods without impacting our city's general fund. In 2020, our city commitment of home funding contributed to the construction of York family residences and the completion of the Boundary Avenue Housing Rehab Project. These projects will add a total of 60 new affordable rental housing units in our city. The year 2020 has been a trying year. The COVID-19 pandemic prompted the federal government to issue special funding to participating jurisdictions throughout the United States to provide funding to those affected the most. The City of York received a total of $849,582. These funds have been utilized thus far to provide 49 grants to small businesses at $5,000 each, and rental assistance allocations to Bell Family Services, Crispus Attucks, and the YMCA of York. To date, Bell has provided rental assistance to 61 households, affecting a total of 197 people at a cost of $169,675. The city has a total of 3 years to expend the grant. The federal government has provided additional funding in the amount of $353,507. Planning for these funds is currently underway. In 2021, besides our regular programming, CASA will be offering a wide range of linguistically and culturally appropriate services for city low-income Latino and immigrant residents. All total, 320 people will receive employment work readiness services, 400 people will receive financial literacy counsel, 300 people will receive tax preparation assistance, and 15 high school students will be enrolled in a program that will prepare them for higher education. The York County Literacy Council will continue to provide reading, writing, math, and computer skills for adults in preparation for GED testing. Also in 2021, home funds will be utilized by Cone for the construction of Thaxton Park 2. Thaxton Park 2 is a new 50-unit rental development on the west side of the city. CDBG funding is truly the lifeblood. CDBG and home funding is truly the lifeblood to small cities. This funding is absolutely critical, and beyond that, it is essential to have these resources available to our community. I will continue to encourage all that as a community, we must collectively advocate for increased funding from the federal government. CDBG and home funding locally creates jobs, constructs housing, rebuilds infrastructure, and fosters home ownership. This funding is one of the best mechanisms for local governments to address local concerns and provide financial assistance to its constituents. Our budget basically depending upon the amount of money that we received. It was developed and planned based on our allocation from 2020. If there are any questions that we could answer concerning the budget, we'd be glad to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Crosby. I don't have any questions, but thank you again. This is another department that has gone above and beyond and done extra work to help support our community in these difficult times under COVID. So thank you, James. Thank you, Tammy, for all the work that you've been doing. Do we have any questions from the budget team?
Yes, I had a few questions. James, you mentioned 49 grants, but the mayor had mentioned 51. It was 49 grants for CDBG of that 849, that 849,000?
We have 49. Mayor has 51. We'll talk about those extra 2 grants. I'm not really sure of where that count's coming from.
Okay. And then you mentioned that sometimes from year to year, even though the money is allocated in certain years, it can be rolled over. Was anything rolled over from 2019 into 2020?
Yes. There were a couple of recipients that did not spend all of their money from 2019 to 2020. They were the RDA that carried over monies and also Public Works carried over some dollars also.
Do you know how much that was carried over from RDA?
Not from 2019, no.
Not from 2019. We'd have to go back and take a look at that. I can get those numbers for you, Allison.
Yeah, and if you could you also let me know how much was actually given to the RDA in 2019?
Sure.
And then that leads me into my next question. 2020, was anything given to the RDA in 2020 from the CDBG funds?
Yes.
Okay. How much was that?
$20,000 for acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
20,000 for stabilization, I believe.
55,000.
No, 55,000 for stabilization and 100.
And three.
What?
103 for demolition.
103 for demolition.
I thought it was, are we sure it's 103 for demolition?
1 second.
$93.
We have it there.
The
More than
cost.
93.
It's only 93,000.
I think
But
that's how much it's spent.
93,000 for.
Could you hold for 1 sec?
Sure, no problem.
Allison, in the meantime, I just take this opportunity to a little lesson for housing. Their grants they get each year are assigned cost centers, and the cost centers have the last 2 digits of each one tell you the year that it originated in. So if you're looking through, Tammy, I was saying about how your cost centers have the last 2 digits associated the year that it was originally awarded. So that's how you can tell in this budget what money is being used from the previous years.
Okay, it's 136,559 for demolition 2020.
Were there a certain number of properties associated with demoing that demolition?
Yeah, we anticipate 3 properties.
In 2020?
In 2020.
So have any been demoed in 2020?
Yes.
Yet?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, 2 properties that were in 2020.
And 1 to go?
Yes.
Okay. And then how many properties are set to be acquisitioned?
1.
1. Okay. All right. And then that 2019, I had asked about 2019 carryover. Can that go back even further from like 2018, 2017?
Yes.
Probably back to 2018.
2018. Okay. Do you guys mind getting me those numbers?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. And just so that folks understand, the CDBG money and the home money is designed to be held over from year to year. Home money can be held for up to 4 years as you are building up your funds for these major projects that we are participating in. So the State Street project that just provided 54 new units, I believe, over there. And now, as was mentioned by Mr. Crosby, the Housing Authority project over on Thaxton, I believe, is our next one lined up. So the carryover is not an uncommon thing. It's actually a way of building up capital to be able to do major projects. I know that the Public Works has been saving up and is about to expend some of that money on road projects. And unfortunately, the cost of tearing down buildings seems like it's nearly as much as building a building. I think our demolitions, Mr. Crosby, have run in the range of $50,000 to $70,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Mayor. Our last one ran in the range of $80,000.
Was that Queen and?
You're covering up the microphone, Mike.
No, I'm not. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm not near my microphone. We're not covering it up. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll talk a little louder. The Queen and College property, was that $80,000 property?
No. The Pine Street property.
Pine Street. Oh, yes. And that was, we had to support the building, the attached building next door, correct?
We had to build a support wall.
Yeah. So yeah, while the numbers might seem high, the cost of just dealing with one blighted property between the attorneys and everything that we have to do, it could easily be $100,000 that we have to invest in just bringing down one semi-falling down property in the city of York. So it's a tough job they have, and I appreciate all the work that you do on that. I did want to respond also, James, and we'll have to figure this out because I have a report right here in front of me that shows 51 grants that were given out for $5,000 each. So we'll have to figure out between the rest of our team why we're saying 51 and you're saying 49. So maybe two of them, the paperwork hasn't gone through yet or something like that. But
Okay.
we are looking to provide a second round of grants also. So we'll be announcing those soon.
And I did have one follow-up question I forgot to ask. It was on my list. Is the high-risk loan program in this budget?
High risk.
The high risk loan program.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't believe we have a high risk loan program in our division, our bureau.
Oh, okay. Mayor, do you know what department that would be in then?
I don't know what a high risk loan. I don't know.
I can't hear you.
I don't know what you're referencing.
The city, I believe, had a high-risk loan program where we loaned money to city residents sometime back.
Yeah.
And they actually repay those loans. We actually see dribbles of that money come into the city from time to time. I was just wondering what budget that was in.
I think she is referring to the money that we gave to the county.
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry you can't hear me.
Now we can. Now we can. I think you have to talk right into that microphone.
Look at you. I can't look at the screen and talk at the same time. Sorry. James, can you explain the loan program we have for the housing improvements that goes through the county?
Yeah, we have a homeowners rehab program.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. That's not the one that I was referencing.
Okay, well, I'm not sure about high risk loan program.
Yeah, we have a high-risk loan program where, and it's been around for a while, but we actually supposedly are supposed to be receiving money into the city from those loan payments. And I'm just trying to figure out what budget that actually is in. I guess I just inadvertently assumed it was in this, but I guess that's
Sheree,
wrong
I
assumption.
see you have your hand up. You can speak at any point as long as you're unmuted.
Okay.
Oh, you just muted yourself again, Sheree.
Okay.
There you go.
The high risk loan program is in the Bureau of Housing Services Department. It's Fund 32.
I mean, that's
And
something.
that is for the loans that were given many years ago and that are now, the people are paying that back, either interest only, or some of them are actually the principal and interest, but most of those loans were without interest or up to 2%.
That's
But they
before
were
my.
many years ago, James. That was
Huh?
before your time, yeah.
Okay.
That was before you were here, yes.
All right. Because
So what budget is it in though, I guess is my question. I understand it's before everyone's time.
It's in Fund 32414, which is the housing department.
now, do we consider that program income, Sheree?
Yes, that would be
Okay.
considered program income.
So that would be in their program income budget?
No, it would just be, first of all, when the money comes in, it comes in under Fund 32414. Then when we get the money, then the money is transferred over to CDBG, and then it's receipted into IDIS's program income. Then they can start spending the program income, and then that will be reflected in the budget as revenue, freeing up entitlement.
Okay, so it goes into you say it goes into CDBG?
It will be, yes, it goes into CDBG once the money is received.
And then it goes where?
Then it will be receipted into IDIS, which is the federal system. And then once it's in IDIS, they can start using the program income instead of using their entitlement. Yes.
Okay, so that's just the system. The IDDS is the CDBG system?
IDIS.
Okay, but it's CDBG money.
It's the federal, yes, for CDBG and home, it's the federal system that they use.
So we should at some point be seeing it as income.
Yes.
Yeah, it's included in the budget. They anticipate $18,000 worth of revenue coming in under this fund, under the account of high risk loan. That's in the revenue. And then if we skip back to the expenses, they anticipate spending the $18,000. Cherie, you can help with this. There's merchant bank fees associated with the loan, fees for service, $135 per month for 12 months. And then it represents the transfer from 32 to the CDBG fund as program income of $16,380.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the budget team?
None right now. Thank you.
Council members? And questions from the community?
We have one from Ryan. You may unmute, Ryan.
Yes, welcome back, Ryan.
Oh, thanks. For the first-time homebuyer program, I think it was said 174 took the class, and then only 11 participated or were recipients of the grant. Is that a typical number, or is that low? Is that high? Is that standard?
That's, we typically plan for 15 people, Ryan, who actually purchase houses out of that number each year. And then the remaining people, the provider tries to work with them to get them to the point where they will be able to actually purchase a house. People come in with credit issues and, all kinds of other issues that limit their ability to get a loan or mortgage. So part of the program is actually working with that group of people to get them mortgage ready, you might say.
And this is the one where it's the $5,000 from the county for the down, and then $2,000 from the city for closing.
The county has its own program. I think, I'm sure ours is 3% of the sales price towards down, and up to 8% of the sales price towards closing costs, not to exceed $7,000.
Okay, thank you.
Questions from the community?
There is a Facebook question. Good evening, everyone. Will the Housing Bureau receive any of the 2020 HUD dollars designated for Choice Neighborhood Program? What role will the Housing Bureau play in the Choice Initiative?
Are you asking me that question?
That's the question for housing.
I think you'd probably be better equipped to answer that question than I, about the Choice Neighborhood funding and the Bureau of Housing Services.
Mayor, is that okay? Okay, so the Choice Neighborhood Initiative program is the program the city is applying for, and it is a program that will unite West End and the East End of the city. We're working with the York Housing Authority. We had our wonderful stakeholders meeting last Monday, which was very well received. The city of York and the Housing Bureau itself is not a authorized vendor. We have to use the Housing Authority. So we do have Tammy, who sits on the critical implementation team, and she is representing very well. And the CDBG dollars that will go into the program, it's a base, the application, the NOFA, which is the grant application, has to have CDBG dollars in it. And so that is a part of the grant, but it's not an actual recipient of any HUD dollars because it is a bureau and not the Housing Authority.
Thank you, Marilyn.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the community?
That didn't even make sense.
All right, with that, that is the end of the Department of Economic and Community Development. And we will now begin our presentations from the Department of Public Works.
Good evening. How's everyone doing? All right. We'll start off here with just an overview of our department. The Department of Public Works is headed by a director of public works. The department is responsible for the construction and maintenance of city streets and highways, city parking facilities, city parks, city storm and sanitary sewers, and all other city-owned properties and facilities. The department shall also carry out the function of refuse collection and disposal. The city's building maintenance and electrical bureau is under the general direction of the Director of Public Works. The function of the department shall be carried out in cooperation with the operating activities of the other departments of the city government, and the personnel attached to the department may, by order of the mayor, perform such construction, maintenance, and technical services as are required by other departments. The Director of Public Works indirectly supervises cleaning of streets, public places, the erection, repairing, maintenance, and reconstruction of all street improvements, pavements, sidewalks, curbs, sewers, conduits, and bridges, supervision of all public utilities as the occupancy of streets and other public places, and all offices and employees used when the city assumes collection, removal, and disposal of refuse. So, Public Works Department, just some accomplishments in the Public Works Administration Department this year. You'll get accomplishments from other departments underneath Public Works, other boroughs. I apologize. But the Public Works Department broke ground on a Poorhouse Run Stream Bank project that began in September and is slated to be completed in December of 2020. The total cost of this project is $1.25 million and is being completely paid for by grant funding. So we received $700,000 from a grant from the County of York, $200,000 from DEP, $200,000 from DCNR, and there's also going to be $125,000 that was contributed by the York City Parks Conservancy. The Public Works Department, Business Administration, Mayor's Office, and Solicitor's Offices work jointly through an effective RFP process to create a new ice arena management agreement with Black Bear Sports Group this year. The Public Works Department worked with Buckhart Horn through an effective RFP process to get a completed capital needs assessment for the city-owned parks and facilities. 90% of this was funded by DCED. The Public Works Department was able to work with the County Commissioner's Office to complete a study of Mason Avenue. Through this study, we're actually actively going after a grant, a multimodal grant for Mason Avenue, which will start at Duke Street right behind the New Yorktown when it's completed, and we'll go down to the transfer center to the rail trail, just kind of helping with the county employees and residents in that area as they're walking, back to the parking lots and stuff like that in the evenings. Also, the Public Works Department, in conjunction with the Grants and Planning Department, we're going after the multimodal grant, which I just mentioned briefly. So next year, some of our goals for Public Works Administration is to begin and complete the rail trail from Philadelphia Street to George Street. This project is funded by PennDOT, TAP funds, and also DCNR. Begin and complete King Street bike lanes from Tremont Street to Penn Street, which are TAP funds for this project. Begin bidding and repaving and realigning the George Street project, which will begin next year, which is a PennDOT funded project. And in 2022 is when we'll actually do the paving for that project. Install stadium lights at Memorial Park Complex. This is something that we wanted to get done this year, but due to COVID, we just had to push it out to next year with funding sources. But we do have $75,000 committed from the Visitors Bureau and also $50,000 from the Huffman Foundation. Also, is to install a new playground and soccer goal at Hudson Park next year, working with Park Conservancies and CDBG for next year. So that's some goals for the Public Works Administration. Now in 2021, 2022, some revenue and expense changes that you will see. You will see increase in revenue for building rentals. Just with COVID, I think our rentals were down because our buildings were shut down through 2020. So in 2021, you will see an increase with building rentals. A decrease you'll see in the liquid fuels highway budget, street paving projects. And these funds went towards, and we'll let Dave talk a little bit more in depth about it, but it went towards the electrical borough liquid fuel account. And then also you'll see an increase in revenue for free events for our city residents, which are donations. Diaz Woodard, who's been working extremely hard with different partners in the community, and he has been doing a great job in bringing in fundraising dollars to help out with some of our events that we do for the city residents. And expenses, you'll see an increase in the Public Works budget. Ultimately, just because we have to replace the Pennsylvania Avenue Street Bridge. So engineering cost and also the cost to replace that bridge will be included in the Public Works budget this year. So you will see an increase in that. That's actually was the big changes that happened in the Public Works admin budget. So I'm open to any questions at this point.
No questions for me, Director. Are there any questions from the budget team?
Yes, I had a couple questions.
Okay.
Chet, you had mentioned the cost to replace a bridge. Which bridge is that? And do you know the costs?
Yes, it's actually Pennsylvania Avenue, and I don't have the cost. I think total between engineering and the bridge, we're looking somewhere closer to $500,000.
And so for that replacement of the bridge or any of that, that would be contracted out?
That will be.
And there would be a bidding process?
There will be.
And when you contract out with, as far as like subcontractors, do we control who they subcontract with or understand those budgets? Or do we pay the subcontractors directly?
No, we don't pay the subcontractors directly. They actually do. Whoever gets the bid actually will get their subcontractors.
So we shouldn't be paying subcontractors directly?
No.
Okay. And then you had brought up repaving. Do you know approximately how many streets and how much that cost?
Repaving of this year or?
Yes, this year.
So this year we did actually four. If you break it into blocks, it was 4 separate projects, right? So the one project was, we just piggybacked off what we did last year. We went from Pershing Avenue, from Springersbury to King Street. Water had to get in there towards the end of us when we were finishing paving last year. So they went in last year and we were able to complete from King Street down to Philadelphia Street this year. And that was with us using liquid fuels dollars for that project. Now, we also did 3 other separate projects. One was on Franklin Street, and we just completed that, and that went from Wallace to York Street. We also did Wallace Street from State Street down to Broad Street. And we also did kind of a flip-flop with utilities companies. There was a street that they were only required to pave a portion of the street because that's where the work was at. Where they, so what we did was we had them, they actually complete the whole street, and we told them in conjunction to dollars and what it would cost that we would pave a street for them moving forward. And we did pave a street, Pine Street, actually from Market to Philadelphia Street. So that project was just completed as well.
And was that with the same contractor?
Yes, they were.
And I don't know if you mentioned this and I might have missed it, but the cost, do you know what those costs were?
I haven't got them all back, but ballpark figure between those 3 is going to be about $300,000, which would be out of CDBG.
Out of CDBG?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And are there paving projects for next year?
As of this point right now, we currently do not have any paving projects for next year, just because we moved some funding around to take care of some other items that we need to focus on for next year.
Such as?
Say that again.
Such as? You said you moved some items around?
Yeah, we moved some items around just because one was we're going to be paying for.
Sorry.
No problem. Currently, we've been paying for streetlights out of our general fund. So what I did was with our street project that we're allocated from liquid fuels, I actually moved those funds to another liquid fuels account so that we can pay for the street lights and it doesn't have to come out of our general fund for next year.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Are there any other questions from the budget team? And I just have one comment, Chaz. You mentioned us working in conjunction with the utilities. So while you say that we basically did 4 roads, there were, I believe, more than a dozen roads and many, many blocks paved.
Yeah. So Mayor, this year so far, we've had, we're looking at 23 blocks that were actually paved this year, just from utilities alone.
Okay, and then add that to ours, which was approximately what, 10 blocks or so?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, we have a new system that we put in place when I came into office to work with these utilities and kind of layer our work as Director Green explained. They had the opportunity to do a little bit more in one area, and so we picked up a little bit more in another area, and so we're getting more paving done, and paving that is going to last much longer than it has been in the past when the utilities were just doing a simple overcoating over the existing roadways.
Yeah, so we're just working to get complete streets throughout the city.
Yeah, it takes a little bit longer, but it's a better investment in the long run. Instead of streets lasting 2 years, the streets will last 10 to 15 years.
That's correct.
Any questions from council members? Any questions from the community?
We have one. Joel, you're up.
Yes, sir, please.
How you doing? Just want to thank you guys for giving us this platform. First off, I have a question. Actually, a couple of questions. I might have missed it. I just logged on. Are we being charged by these outside companies to pave these roads at all?
Are we being charged? I mean, well, yeah, we have contractors that we put out the bid, so we're paying for the projects. It just depends on the funding source. So this year we haven't paid any paving. We haven't paid for any paving projects out like the general fund, but we've been able to pay for them out of CDBG funds and also liquid fuels.
Okay, thank you. Also, I seen in your objective, you would be selling York City branded clothing to City of York employees. Is that a mandatory thing, or is that just an optional? If we want to buy it, we can buy it type of deal?
Yeah, that was something I put in as just a way that we can gain some revenue around the building. I think it's good for branding, it's good for marketing, not something that employees would have to do. But, you know, and that's something that would be discussed, you know, with the mayor and stuff like that. But that was just something I just kind of thought of. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Director. With hearing no other questions, I believe up next we have Mr. Gerber, Bureau of Highway.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Well, I'll just piggyback off of a lot of what Chaz just spoke about with the Highway Bureau. A lot of our accomplishments for the year was the paving that Chaz had talked about that we had done not in-house, but that the city had taken care of, as well as the utility companies. So I continue to work closely with the utility companies during the pre-construction phase of their work, as well as the restoration phase of the work. So I try to be that go-between so that we are all in agreement with how things are going to get repaired and to keep them on track to be repaired correctly. So like you said, Mayor, that they'll last much longer than just a quick patch or a quick fix. A few other things that we did. We did have a rough year in our alley paving. We generally try to get 4 or 5 different projects completed. I'd say that probably equates to about 10 to 12 blocks of alleys a year. However, with the COVID shutdown, furloughs, we did have to reschedule a lot of that work for 2020 into 2021. And that's reflected in the budget. As far as we didn't really change our numbers much. I don't believe we asked for any additional funding. But what I'm really looking forward to is getting back to the master plan of continuing to repair our some of our alleys, especially some of the alleys that are used a little heavier than others. We did do some repair work around Penn Street Market there were some sinkholes in the parking lot there, some issues out on Penn Street that had been there for quite a long time. So we did get in and get some base repair done on those so that the travel be a little nicer in that area. The sinkholes there in the parking lot, we hope will hold up. You never know with living on a limestone base if that's always going to happen, but I believe we got something going there in the right direction. As far as our goals and objectives, I just spoke a little bit there about, getting into our alley paving next year. We, as well as I have a plan set forth to do some tire lane, I call it a tire lane repairs. Just areas where we have decent road, but we need to start to repair the rut that you always see that starts to form in the tire lane. Obviously, every year I'm asking for new equipment because our equipment is very outdated, so it's very difficult, and we have to rent a lot of stuff to get that done in-house. But I think I have a plan for next year to get some of that stuff done, specifically Parkway Boulevard down there along Kiwanis Lake. That's still a road in good shape, but it's starting to be compromised. I'd like to get on that before it gets out of control. Some other goals that we have would be to schedule and complete storm inlet cleaning and repairs. We continue to work on that. We have been down a position for all of 2020, which was our concrete worker position, who specifically works on repairs to failing catch basins, storm sewers that have defects in them, that have collapses. So we're doing the best we can with that. We're hoping to get somebody in that position and get them moving on repairs, and obviously working closely with MS4 and Latisse to get more improvements done in that side of things. We also We'll continue with the leaf pile removals that for the rest of this year, and we're preparing for our snow emergency plan and effectively trying to implement the city's snow removal plan for the year. We did get lucky last year, but I don't think we should count on not getting snow again. Never seems to go that way. Like I said, as far as our budget is concerned, really the only expense that I had of note was the non-discretionary items, clothing, boots, uniforms, collective bargaining agreement. That's just increases in totals or increases in the cost of those services. But I think other than that, we kept towed the line and just stood our ground there on what we think we need to continue to run the department. I'm open to any questions.
And Mayor, real quick, if you don't mind, just kind of piggyback off Keith, what he just said is that, one thing that we have been doing a lot in the highway department, instead of us contracting out all services, like he talked about on Penn Street, some other areas around the city. I know on the avenues, I forget what street it was, but on the avenues, there was a project there where we're trying to do some of this base repair in-house. So we're not having to go out and contract out every time. I mean, we understand what our budget looks like. We understand the restraints that the city obviously is dealing with right now. And we're just trying to make sure that we can still get the work done, but trying to keep the funds in-house so that we can make it work. And
Director, yeah, I don't have any questions on the budget. I would like to mention, though, that in my weekly reports from the department, I usually get numbers of how many potholes are fixed and how much blacktop was used. And I'd love to see what that looks like as an end of year number, just so that people understand a little bit more what is really being done out there. Because as you mentioned earlier, we live on limestone. And for those that don't understand what that means, in our geology, there's constantly sinkholes going on all over the city. Basically, our entire city is on this limestone stuff. It's the reason why there's so many quarries around here. But it's a very difficult place to maintain streets and maintain structures. So it's a little extra adversity that we have to go through for living here. But I'd love to see the annual report on how many potholes you guys have been filling all over the place, because every week there's dozens of potholes on my list. So I know it's a big number.
Yes, I'll certainly get those to you. I know it's going to be a large number, as well as the tonnage that we put in those.
So I have no questions on your budget. Budget team, questions?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. One was on the capital equipment, the vehicles. Just how many, were there new vehicles purchased this year? And that budget, how many vehicles is that? Is this the maintenance of them or the purchase?
Chaz, can you speak on that? I can tell you there were no new vehicles purchased this year.
For your department, for highway?
Yeah, for the highway. No, there were no, I don't believe there were any new vehicles purchased this year at all for the city. The police department did, but I believe they were purchased out of grants. I don't know that 100% though.
but if you're talking about here, capital equipment, this is our liquid fuels account. Am I correct, Gerb?
I'm not seeing exactly on here where.
Your capital equipment for vehicles.
Oh, here we go. It's 108. Yeah, I believe that was was that not the lease, not the vehicle lease, but the equipment lease that we had. I thought we were just getting ready to pay those all off.
Yeah, so here, this is what is that there was some, this is liquid fuels account. We're able to purchase equipment out of this account, and we had leases that just kind of ended this year. So with the liquid fuels money is that there is some equipment that we need to purchase that we just haven't had over the years. And that we put that into the budget this year out of liquid fuels funds, not the general budget.
Okay, so you mean that line item that says vehicles?
Yes.
That's equipment for liquid fuels?
Yes.
Okay, not actual vehicles?
No.
Okay, okay.
Just all equipment, yes.
Yeah, I believe that the vehicles is going to come out of our fleet bureau in that budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that'll be our leases.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions from City Council? And any questions from the community?
We have two hands. Kurt, you are up.
Hello.
Welcome, Kurt.
I noticed I have a question about the salaries and wages. I noticed a decrease of about $103,000 for this proposed year. Does that mean that Public Works will maybe be the only department that gets the layoffs if it's going to happen?
I think that would be a question for me, and that's definitely not. The layoffs in this budget go anywhere from my office. Let me see, I have a document here somewhere. Let's see here. We've got layoffs, 9 police officers, administrative assistant for the mayor's office, full-time data entry clerk for the police, part-time community resource assistants in the police, full-time equipment operator, 2 in highway, that's 2 of those. 1 full-time custodian and 1 full-time building maintenance worker, 1 full-time clerk, 2 cashier for the treasurer, 1 full-time recreation specialist in recreation, 2 full-time equipment operators in parks, 1 full-time wastewater collection operator, 1 full-time wastewater collection operator, 2 operations manager for the wastewater treatment plant, compliance officer for our municipal industrial pretreatment program, are all positions that are eliminated under this budget.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mayor, just to clarify, you said that you have an admin assistant layoff in your department, but your budget went up
Yes.
for salaries.
Kim, this is the removal of the admin position that was in there.
That's correct, Mayor. That was
Right.
discussed last night.
Yeah, the admin assistant position has been eliminated and the chief of staff position was added back in. And after discussions of last night, that is the increase, is that the chief of staff position is paid a bit more than the admin assistant was budgeted for 2020. I did look back and the mayor's budget for salaries in 2021 is $18,000 less than what was budgeted in 2018. So it's lower than it was 3 years ago, but there is an increase because of the switch of the positions.
Okay, thank you.
And I will point out, thank you for pointing that out. Some of the there's a difference between positions and employees. So some of the positions that I named are vacant positions that are still in the budget, and we are taking them out of the budget. So for instance, at the wastewater treatment plant, one of the operations managers at the wastewater treatment plant is an unfilled position, but is currently budgeted. So that was taken out of the budget.
So, okay, so it's not an actual layoff, it's just a position that was never filled, taken out.
Correct. And many of these are not, there is a difference between layoffs. For instance, currently, 7 of the 9 police positions are not filled right now. We are waiting to figure out what's happening with this budget. It didn't make sense to hire any new police officers and then have to lay them off in 2 months. So we are not talking about removing there are 2 other retirees in the pipeline. So we are not talking about removing any existing police officers. We are talking about the elimination of 7 positions and the retirement of 2 others without backfilling those positions. Any other questions I know that digressed a little bit from the Bureau of Highway, but any other questions for Bureau of Highway?
Joel has a question.
Joel, welcome back. we have a question, sir?
I have two questions.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Oh, now we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, I do have. I have quite a few questions. Number one, the position that is being increased within, I think it was your administration, that Phil Givens did hold at one point. Am I right that it was your administration or your department or whatever the
Yeah,
budget
he
comes from?
was in my department, and then he was in the Department of Economic and Community Development, and now he has come back to my department.
Okay, so that position that you guys said was basically being underpaid, is that an elected position?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. My other question is, there are 9 police officers that are being laid off,
So far, according to this budget, yes.
but none of them are actually being laid off.
They are, these are,
I'm sorry, Mayor, let me interject. It's elimination by attrition.
All right, attrition, okay. But you're actually trying to lay off actual people in public works, though.
we're not trying to do anything, but we don't have any money to pay people. So yes, there are positions being eliminated.
So to put that there are 9 police positions that are not being, that are being eliminated is actually kind of like, it's kind of false, because there are no positions that's being eliminated at all within the police, but there are actual people that will be eliminated within public works. Am I right?
Understood, but we're talking about the budget right now. So the money for those police officers is going to be eliminated, and the money for the positions within public works are going to be eliminated.
Right. That money that those police officers' positions were not being filled has been being used anyway, because there are no actual bodies in those positions, but there are actual bodies in public works that are going to be laid off that you guys are proposing. So I'll get back to highway. I see that there's an O&E pension. It's at 81,000. I want to know why there are zeros in the projected for 2020 and the adjusted for 2020, and it's 81,000 for the projected 2021.
Yeah.
Mayor, if I may, this was explained a bit yesterday. With our new system, we were able to better allocate the costs associated with our workforce and actually come up with total compensation costs by position. And in order to do that, the O&E pension cost, the cost for pension and health insurance and all the ones that you see here under the fringe benefits, except for the FICA and the laundry and clothing, those are new to this budget, which is why there's zero amounts for the previous year. Those were traditionally included into the departments by the use of the insurance allocation, the BA allocation, and the BA allocation specifically for the O&E pension. So you'll see that these have much higher numbers from last year and have much lower numbers this year. So you almost have to combine them all together to really see what the increase was. And to clarify, the O&E pension, that is our minimum municipal obligation that is calculated with an actuary to tell us based on what our estimated payroll is going to be, how much we are required to pay into the pension fund every year in anticipation for future benefits being paid. So that's something that's out of our control in terms of how it's calculated. The health insurance is something that's traditionally, as much as we're trying many initiatives to lower our costs, it's just nationwide that health insurance costs are on the rise. So there will be an increase there from the previous year. But that's why there's zeros for these categories for last year, and why there's such reductions in the business administration and insurance allocations from last year. The good news is that this OpenGov program that we have for this year, are already in the works of a whole allocation module, just like there's the workforce module that I use to come up with these fringe benefit amounts at the top here associated with positions. So though we have to manually calculate the allocations, and these are all of the costs associated, of course, out of the risk management fund for insurance, the business administration department, human resources, information services, which is IT, and the central services budget that gets allocated out across the different departments because they're part of internal services. So next year we'll have a tool that'll make it even more accurate and transparent than we've ever been before.
And any more questions, Mr. Collier?
Yes, was it just not possible to break down last year's proposal or 2019's, proposal, or?
That is correct. We were limited with what we can do with the budget. They were already budgeted in those accounts. We can't move them out of those accounts to show the difference for this year, because that would not be an accurate representation of what was included in the budget last year.
Okay. What were we advertising or planning to advertise that costs $1,000?
In the highway budget?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that's usually advertising. Like when we go out to bids, we also have to put them in the media. So we have to pay for that as well. So we always put money in the advertising funds for street projects and things like that.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
But it's zero right now.
Yeah, I know. And that's what we looked at, because we're not going to do that street project that we talked about.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Usually in the past, that's what we kept it there for our own street project.
Any other questions from the community?
Lori, you may unmute.
Hello?
Yes, hello, Lori.
Hi, I was wondering why Highway contracted out that one road paving project.
What paving project?
Yeah, Highway contracted out a road paving project instead of doing it yourself.
No, I said we're trying to do more work, but there's some things that we just don't have the equipment that we can do. So I'm not sure which paving project that you're talking about, though. So
it was discussed earlier.
okay, yeah, the ones that we did do earlier, like I said, they didn't come out of the general fund accounts. They actually came out of. I'm sorry, I see my name on the screen as I'm up here. But yeah, so they actually came out of CDBG funds and also liquid fuels accounts. So nothing came out of the general fund account for paving projects.
All right, thank you.
Can we, I don't know what that is. Can we eliminate that other person?
That's actually Percy. Percy just hopped on, but Percy, if you want, you can go ahead and just mute.
Hey, can I be heard?
Yeah, yep. So you can go ahead and hit mute. It's not your turn yet. There you go. Thanks.
You have two questions from Facebook, sir. The first question is, how many streets will be paved in 2021? Not alleys, but streets.
Not alleys, but streets. For us as a city, as of right now, there's only one project that we're looking for that would be out of CDBG for next year, and that would be State Street, considering if that project is completed over there. And that will go from Market Street all the way up to past York Street. I can't think of the end of the street there. Yeah, it'll take right to the railroad tracks. So as of right now, that's the only project that we're looking to complete next year from the city. But then also, like I mentioned, there was 23 projects that were done by utilities companies that were all paved this year. So next year, they'll probably be somewhere in the ballpark as well as 23 to 30, just because they did stop a little bit during the COVID.
And the other question, so 2021 expected payroll budget for highway is $110,000 less.
Okay, I will let Kim answer that question.
Yes, that was just discussed with the potential elimination of positions. It ends up being a lower cost in 2021.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from the community?
Joel again, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like if you don't mind, break down again. I didn't get time because you kind of reading it a little fast of the people that are going to get laid off and the positions that are going to get laid off potentially.
Well, I mean, I will go by department. I'm not going to go through everything again. This is the Public Works Department. Tomorrow we will discuss police, and we've already discussed some of the others. Public Works, we have 2 full-time equipment operator 2s in the highway, 1 full-time custodian, 1 full-time building maintenance worker, and 1 full-time recreation specialist, and 2 full-time equipment operator 2s in parks, and 1 full-time wastewater collection operator 1 in sewer, 1 full-time wastewater collection operator 2 in sewer, and then the elimination of the vacant positions of the operations manager for the wastewater treatment plant and the compliance officer 1 for the municipal industrial pretreatment program.
I'm sorry, what was the last one? I apologize.
The compliance 1 officer, or compliance officer 1 for what we call MIP. The MIP budget, I think, is going to come up here shortly. The municipal industrial pretreatment program. Those are the folks that go out to the industries and make sure that they are reducing their pollution as much as possible before it comes into the wastewater treatment plant and harms our efforts to treat the sewer.
Okay, is that position currently occupied?
No, it is not.
Okay, so essentially all the management is the operator manager. Is that filled?
No.
Okay, so all the management positions that are being cut are not filled, as well as all the police positions that are being cut are not filled. The only ones that are being cut that are filled are from Public Works, basically the union workers, right?
No, those are just the ones I read because we are in Public Works right now. Yesterday, we read off that a cashier from the treasurer's office. Actually, what else do we have here? And multiple other positions from the police department that are filled right now.
But out of 9, only 2 are filled, and those 2 are retiring.
Those are police officers. There are other positions, community resource assistants, data entry clerks. These positions are filled at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anyone else from the community with questions?
We just got one more. Looks like Artemis. Go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just joined. So I want to jump back to the highway budget just real quick. The money that I believe they said was coming out of liquid fuels, and it was taken out. It was being taken out to be used for lights. I believe Chaz made that remark.
We did take the money out of liquid fuels because with liquid fuels money in the budget that we have from it, we can reallocate it to other liquid fuels line items. So there's a line item for lights and actually in the building maintenance and electrical bureau. So what I did.
What is the lighting though?
Street lights around the city.
Oh, it's just, okay. All right.
Electricity for it, the utility cost.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to building maintenance and electrical, and I believe that is Mr. Rudolph.
Hey, good evening, folks. As I said, I'm David Rudolph. I'm Superintendent of Building and Electrical Bureau. Overview for our Bureau is responsible for providing safe buildings, streets for the city employees and citizens of York. The Bureau maintains and monitors 600 city-owned streetlights and 3,100 med-ed streetlights, 9 game well fire alarm circuits, 47 city-owned buildings and facilities, and 102 signalized traffic signal intersections. With COVID this year, our accomplishments are a little small with the furloughs and things like that, but I'll give you some highlights. First off, we moved the Human Relations Commission back into City Hall in 2020. The Bureau started building a new emergency operations center in a lower level of City Hall. That hopefully will be completed in December. Also, our big project for the year right now is a collaborative project that's been undertaken to repair the dam and aeration systems at Kiwanis Lake. This will be done with the help from the Rotary Club, Trolla Industries, Stewart and Tate, American Hydro, and donations from the community. No city monies will be used for this project. Also, another office combination was done. The treasurer's office and finance departments were moved. The offices were actually switched, and we removed a wall in the old treasurer's office to make one large office, thus making Mr. Jeff Coates' office and bureau a little more functional. Some of the goals for 2021, we have some flashing pedestrian crossing signals to be installed, one at George Street and Mason Avenue. Also another one at the Market Street garage entrance going towards the Yorktown Hotel. Those are two of our most utilized mid-block crosses. And both of those flashing pedestrian signals were paid for by the County of York. No monies from the City of York. And then our other big goal for next year is to install a full building generator or emergency generator for fire station number 9 on Roosevelt Avenue. As far as revenue and expense changes, I only have one, and Chaz had hit on it earlier. The biggest change is an addition of $185,000 in liquid fuels. And that's used for the traffic signal or the street lighting, to pay the electricity costs for street lighting. That bill usually runs, Kim's pulling it up now, thank you. That bill normally runs about $400,000 a year. We were paying most of that out of liquid fuels for quite a few years, and we transferred 185,000 of it back from general fund into liquid fuels. We had shifted some money around out of liquid fuels for a big paving project and funded that instead of out of liquid fuels. We funded it out of general fund this year. We brought that money back to save 185,000 out of general fund and let the federal liquid fuels pay for it. That's the quick abbreviated version of this budget. Like I said, nothing else has really changed. It's the same budget that we had presented last year. Last year we put pretty big hits in the numbers. I'll take any questions if you have them.
Mr. Rudolph, I did get a question, and thank you for everything you've been doing with a short staff and furloughed staff. I know at one point you were down to just like 1 or 2 people. So thank you for helping us through this, and for all the work to try and make City Hall a safer place in regards to COVID.
You're welcome.
Someone asked me just the other day about the lighting project in Penn Park. Can you tell us what we have done so far and what we hope to do there?
Yes, so far we did a 10 light trial that the Parks Foundation had given us money to purchase those lights. So we put up solar lights. We installed 10 to try them. In my opinion, they're working very well. There's a total of 80 lights in the park. So we're looking to replace all of them. It would be a total of $79,000 left to do the whole project. We're looking to do that because the underground wiring for the electrical in the park needs replaced. That cost would be upwards of $600,000 to $700,000. If we switch all the lights to the new solar lighting that we're testing out, we can get it done for $79,000. Never have another electric bill in the history of the park. So we'll save money all around. We are still looking for some funds out of that. We're hoping that the Parks Foundation will give us some of that, and also between you and I and Chaz, I'd like to hit up the Community Foundation. They were interested in helping out also.
Just between the three of us.
Yeah,
Not
right.
Hundreds of people that are watching right now.
Yeah, it was a good plug, right? Hopefully
Yeah,
they're paying attention.
We'll try. We'll definitely move forward with that. Thank you. I don't have any questions on the numbers. Budget team, any questions on the numbers for the electric bureau and building maintenance? Any questions from city council members? Any questions from our community members?
We got one hand. Go ahead.
How you doing? How's it going, Mr. Rudolph?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm hanging in there. Quick question. Well, a couple questions. Number one, the custodian position that's you guys are proposing to lay off, is that filled at the moment?
Yes, I have an unfilled part-time position, but the position they're looking to eliminate is a filled position also.
Okay, so both of those positions will be eliminated.
I have to leave that up to HR. I'm not sure. Normally, the part-time would have to go first, I would think.
Right, so I'm just asking, if the part-time goes, will the full-time stay, or you guys just looking to eliminate the full-time?
Kim, Tom?
Contractually, if a full-time goes, there cannot be any part-times anymore. So that's why I'm asking.
Exactly, and that's what I think. I think that's the plan right now, Joel. I'm not sure.
Okay. Dave, this is a discussion that I'm going to be having with the Teamsters Local 776 business agent and their attorney. So I don't think this is the forum to get into the specifics of the potential layoffs for any position at this point, other than how many there are and the positions themselves.
No, I agree.
Respectfully, there is no real discussion, no disrespect. I mean, the contract says if there's a layoff of a full-timer, there cannot be any part-timers. So that just kind of goes hand in hand. That's why I was curious as to which position was being laid off. Was it part-time or full-time?
There is no part-time position to be laid off.
Mr. Rudolph said there is a part-time position open, just like there's police officer positions that are open that are being laid off too.
The part-time position is not filled.
Right. There's police officers that are not filled too, and they're being laid off as well.
Okay, Mr. Collier, I'm not going to get into a debate with you.
Business
Okay.
So just to keep things flowing, again, this is a public hearing. It is not a back and forth discussion. So we're definitely trying to be accommodating, but there are issues, there are legal issues that we are in discussions with your representatives right now, Mr. Collier.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Real quick, building maintenance position, is that a filled position or is that an open position too, Mr.
They're all
Rudolph?
filled.
Okay. Thank you.
And we have one more hand raised. Anthony, you can unmute.
Good evening, gentlemen, ladies. I wanted to piggyback off of what Mr. Joel was saying. It seems that if the contract states that you cannot get rid of a full-time employee and keep a part-time position, it should be a pretty unanimous decision that the part-time decision would go first, as stated in previous departments when you were discussing layoffs. Am I correct?
You can have that discussion with your Teamster representative.
Mayor, if you
Can
said
you say that
something.
again?
We are in discussions right now, and as the business administrator stated, we are not going to discuss the legalities or the or what is happening now. There is no part-time position at this time.
Mr. Rudolph stated that there was currently a part-time position that is filled, and he stated, I'm not going to quote him, but I'll paraphrase him, that it would most likely go first. Am I right, Mr. Rudolph?
Mayor, we're getting into an area of discussion and debate that, again, the purpose of this meeting is not for that. We have scheduled meetings with the locals representatives in Harrisburg. The city understands and will respect the terms and conditions of the contract for position eliminations and layoffs.
Thank you. I don't have anything.
Are there any other questions from the community?
There are a couple hands still raised, but just want to make sure that if they are, I don't know, should I bring them in or?
Bring them in.
Okay. Anthony, you may speak. Or he may be done.
My apologies. I must have hit the raise button by accident. I can see.
Okay. Joel, you're up. You can unmute.
Oh, I didn't hit the button. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm done. Thank you.
And then let's go to Andy. 1 second. Sorry. 1 second. No. Andy, Zoom is telling me that you're using an older version of Zoom, and I am unable to bring you through. So you need to update your Zoom. Okay, that's it.
I thought I saw Miss Luckenball's hand up.
She must have put it down.
Okay.
Okay. Next we have the Bureau of Fleet Maintenance. Chaz, who do we have representing you?
That's me, Mayor.
Oh, okay. Mr. Gerber.
Yes. So the Bureau of Fleet Maintenance is pretty short and sweet. Right as of now, we only have one mechanic. We generally do have two. We lost a mechanic this past summer, and we worked without that mechanic for the remainder of the year. We're hoping to be able to replace that person to continue to, or I should say, replace that position to continue to achieve our goals and objectives. The overview is the Fleet Maintenance Bureau. It maintains the city's fleet of city vehicles, and as well as all of our equipment, our construction equipment. Those vehicles consist of all of the public works vehicles, the police vehicles, pretty much every vehicle we have other than the larger fire apparatus. At this time, the major accomplishments for this department, for this bureau, was that we were able to maintain all functions of the fleet department during the COVID-19 shutdown, employee furloughs, the the death of one of our auto mechanics and the vandalism that we had at City Hall. I should note that the death was not an on-job issue, or not issue, but situation. But we kept on plugging away with scheduling and completing state inspections, emissions, and repairs, as well as preventative maintenance on the 216 vehicles in the fleet and over 20 pieces of construction equipment. Some of that stuff has to be sent out to be inspected. We do not do emissions on site. We don't have anyone that's certified in emissions as of now. We don't have a mechanic that is certified to inspect any of our vehicles that are over 17,000 pounds. So with our goals and objectives for our bureau, one is to begin. Hopefully, we'll be able to hire a auto mechanic 2 that would be able to do maintenance and inspections on our larger construction equipment, our larger snowplow trucks, anything that is basically a diesel and over 17,000 pounds. We can keep that in-house and reduce our costs to sending those out to be done off-site. One of the other goals is as of now, we have 28 decommissioned fleet vehicles that are sitting, waiting to be sold at auction. I'd like to get those all sold for some revenue. As usual, our main objective is to process all of our work orders within a 48-hour time frame. I'm really proud of our mechanic, John Hedrick. He's really kept his nose to the grindstone through all of this and kept us on target, as well as John Bean. Both of those men keep that department really moving for the city. It's been difficult with just keeping up with things, but they just keep getting them in and out and doing the best that we possibly can right now. As far as revenue, we do collect a little revenue from the fuel that the MIP, wastewater treatment plant, sewer maintenance and environmental, and housing use from down at the highway garage. And we have really only one request for an increase, and I don't believe we even did actually ask for that increase, and that was for tools, for additional tools for some of the specialized stuff that the mechanics work on. So other than that, that's about all I have for that department. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I don't have any further questions. I do want to point out that 10 minutes before the call today, I did approve an offer letter for your automotive mechanic 2. So an offer will be going out so that you can have folks there and we can work on our larger equipment, hopefully in time before we get any of that dreaded weather this winter.
That's great news. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. And thank you for everybody, the whole HR team, for getting that all done. I have no financial questions here. Are there any questions from the budget team? Any questions from city council members? Questions from the community?
We have one hand. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing? Out of curiosity, will the person or persons, if it goes through, that are being laid off potentially as equipment operators in the highway be called back in to become mechanics?
I think I have an answer, but I'd rather hear from HR what the answer is.
As Mr. Ray had mentioned.
Kim, I'll answer. Mayor, as I said before, the city is going to honor the layoff provision in the contract.
So that no one can be hired without people being called back?
we're going to honor the contract, Mr. Collier.
So obviously you're asking questions that have to do with the legalities of the contract between the Teamsters and the City of York. And as stated earlier, these will be discussed by your representatives and the representatives of the City of York.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions regarding the budget for fleet maintenance? Hearing none, next we have the Bureau of Environmental Services. And do we have Ms. Casey Dennis with us?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and everyone.
Good evening.
So for the Environmental Bureau, basically we're broken into kind of two parts. My side of it is more oversight of the hauling contract and the large item attendant. And then Mr. Landis has the maintenance side. Half of his salary is paid out of there and half out of the recreation and parks. He has 3 Teamster positions under environmental. So overview of our department, basically the Environmental Bureau works to provide a clean, healthy, and beautiful city by managing refuse, recycling, large item, yard waste collection. All of York City, I'm sorry, I got some feedback there. Residents, commercial, municipal, and institutional establishments are mandated to recycle designated materials according to the state's Act 101 and York City's Ordinance, Article 952. In 2020, we did submit, just before COVID, we prepared and submitted a 902 grant application, which if we are awarded, we don't know that yet, but if we are, it does help us purchase replacement containers, which lower the cost to our residents. So instead of paying $10 to $15 for a replacement, we only charge $3. During this time, we also, the bid for our collections contract came up. The current contract runs out the end of April of 21. So we had to go ahead and bid that contract this past summer and fall. So we advertised that, did a mandatory pre-bid meeting, did a bid opening, which resulted in only 1 bid. We usually do receive 2, but this year, for some reason, we only got 1. On the maintenance side for 2020, our illegal tire dumping issue was down throughout the city. We had an issue there for a while, ongoing. The staff was able to sustain sufficient cleanup and removal efforts of illegal dumping, dead animals, discarded electronics, and large items that were not scheduled. Environmental Bureau staff also assisted in mowing grass and trimming and removal of trash and litter from 6 nuisance properties throughout the city. In 2021, some of our goals is to go ahead and implement the new collection contract, which would go into effect May 1st. Before that time, we will need to evaluate some of our multi-residential units where we have dumpsters and tow carts for multiple units, just to ensure that the new costs and the new collection rates that we're charging will cover the containers and frequencies of services. This year, we'd like to really kind of educate the community on Article 951, bagging trash, even when using a trash can. This kind of came in time with COVID. We didn't plan it that way, but by bagging all trash, not only does it cut down on litter, keeps water out of there, making it heavier, costing us more, but it also protects your collectors from germs. Anything that's in your can comes out with the bag. It doesn't lay loose in the back of the truck. So there's multiple reasons. But we did have to update our Article 951 for trash and also our Article 952 recycle ordinances for grant eligibility. And those were added to both of those. The other thing we're going to do in 2021 is we are in our 3rd year of a 10-year cycle replacing old street cans, which are then installed by our Bureau staff as well. looking at our revenue and expenses for 21, we did have a decrease in our performance grant. Part of that is the collapse of the global recycling markets, meaning we're recycling less material, throwing more in the trash. The markets aren't there for it. So when you weigh the trash against the recycle, our percentages are lower, resulting in a lower grant. The resale of our containers during COVID and the accessibility to City Hall went down, just a little tough for people to get to us or us to them. And we anticipate some of that may continue into this coming year as well, depending how the pandemic pans out. In our expenses, two main line items in the environmental budget pretty much take up 80% or more of our budget. That's the refuse collections and the disposal. So refuse collection is the new contract. For next year, we will have, in 2021, we'll have 4 months under the current contract, and then the increase in the last 8 months of the year. Our contract, the single bid that we got, did drive our cost up 49%. So the last 8 months of the year will show quite a increase. Now keep in mind, in 2022, we'll have 12 months at the new contract rate as well. So we'll see another raise the year after. At the same time, we had increases at both the incinerator and also the landfill. Most of our material in the city is burnable. It does go to the incinerator. Probably about 18,000 tons per year goes to the incinerator, and only 8,000 tons go to modern. And that's kind of things like street sweeping grit that's not burnable, material like that. I see the maintenance accounts on Mr. Landis's side were decreased by 5%. Again, the rest of the budget doesn't really, it's not a lot of money compared to the refuse disposal and collections, but that's kind of where we're at. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Dennis. And thank you for everything you're doing to help us through this difficult time. The contract, as you pointed out, so we're talking about an extra almost $600,000 this year. Well, it looks like $500,000 on this budget, but we can expect that to go up by even more next year, or 2022 and 2023. So unfortunately, as she said, we had no other bidders. So this is what we were, this is unfortunately a small market. There's only a couple companies, and if we don't have bidders, this is what we get. But there is something that you can do, and that is, while a bunch of stuff is no longer recyclable that used to be, please continue to recycle those things like metal cans, laundry detergent bottles, cardboard, all of newspaper. All of these things are items that increase that refuse disposal line 44260. So if you are trying to help us, trying to help offset these fee increases that are inevitable, that's the thing that every one of us can do, is recycle. We don't have to pay for the weight of the material that is recycled properly. I think this is, what is this, the 9th year I've been singing that song now? But I'll keep singing it until we save money. I took over from Jim Gross. Jim Gross used to say it, and I took over from him. But that is the one thing that every single household can do, and that is recycle properly, and it saves the city money.
And that, Mayor, that also includes yard waste. Separating out the yard waste also brings our tonnage down. And if I can make just a small announcement, our final collection for yard waste this year, everybody's been asking, well, several have been asking, weather permitting, the final curbside will be Monday, December 14th and Tuesday, December 15th.
Wonderful. Thank you for that information.
Thank you.
And I have no further questions on your budget, budget team members.
Yes, I had a question. Cassandra, have you ever looked into or thought about grants for any of these expenses?
Grants for collections?
Just in, yeah, in general?
No. Mm-mm.
Are you aware of any particular grants that we should be looking for? I'm unaware. In the years that we've been working on this, I'm unaware, other than money that comes from the state for performance. I'm unaware of specific grants.
Right.
And can I interject, Mayor?
Please do.
Okay, we have a wonderful program called eCivis, and there are actual recycling grants that actually allow us to do some of the things that Cassandra is talking about, as well as some of the education pieces that you want to do in the city. So I remember attempting to, maybe I should give them to Chaz to give to Cassandra, but I know that there are a couple of grants that have been available. So I will make sure that she gets them.
Are these the DEP grants? Because I do apply for the 902 grant.
No, they're not.
It's a different one?
In the area of grants, there are so many other foundations and things that give to municipalities. So I know that, so there are different areas outside of just the standard ones that we're used to.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's important because we pay for a service with eCivis, and that's the service that they are providing. So it's really important to utilize that service.
Any other questions from the budget team? Any questions from council members? And questions from the community? Hearing none, we'll move on to Bureau of Parks and Recreation.
All right, Tom is actually away, so I'm going to be filling in for him tonight for Parks and Recreation. The Bureau is Parks and Recreation. The Bureau is responsible for meeting the recreation needs of York City residents by providing direction, planning, and coordination of services to enhance their quality of life through year-round leisure programs and facilities that will develop and enhance the individual's physical, emotional, mental, and social being. If there's one department that really took a hit this year was the Parks Department during COVID. And what actually happened was with the mowing, trimming, grout maintenance efforts of the Parks team. So when we had the furloughs, it was kind of tough. So you guys seen, I mean, we were usually in the position where we were cutting parks like once a week, every 2 weeks. We were at like a 3-week schedule that we were working off of. We did make it through it, but they were able to catch up once we graduated back from furloughs. They were able to catch back up and maintain all the parks. Memorial Complex, that took a hit during the pandemic as well, just because we weren't using the fields at that time. But we were able to attract some different customers and host some tournaments, stuff like that later on in the season, in the summer, stuff like that. So we had some new customers this year, which was pretty good. Our rec softball leagues that we usually do out there, we were able to salvage them, and we started them in July than when they usually would have started like in April, May time. So we were able to push them back. So we still were able to have those leagues. And coordinated community efforts in a safe manner with outside organizations to plant flowers, hanging baskets in the downtown area, completed cleanup of the Broad Street Gardens along the Greenway, and to begin all phases of Kiwanis Lake Improvement Project to begin with stream and also and end with stream bait renovations to Poorhouse Run and Memorial. 2021 goals and objectives is to book weekends for softball and baseball tournaments in Memorial Complex from March 27th through November 14th. At Memorial Complex, book private rentals on open softball fields not being used during weekdays or by summer leagues. Introduce youth baseball games on these fields to create extra revenue. One good thing is this year, we've always had like the adult softball leagues. And one thing that we have been trying to get into was trying to bring the youth baseball and the youth softball leagues. So this year, we had open fields, we were to work with York City Little Leagues and also some other organizations and tournaments for the youth this year, which was pretty cool. And then also looking forward to doing it next year. Looking to do some community playground builds, also reestablish Angels of the Park program and volunteer opportunities throughout the park system. That's what we have there. An increase in revenue. There was a 10% increase in revenue for softball tournaments and weekday or weekend softball field rentals at the Memorial Complex. 5% increase in summer volleyball league registrations with the COVID-19 restrictions still being lifted. 10% increase in revenue through donations and in-kind services as it relates to Angel of the Parks program and volunteer efforts for the community. Expense park maintenance budget was decreased by 6.7%. And just kind of going through his line items here, revenue, you'll see an increase in like facility rentals, but other than that, I'm not seeing any increases. So if there's any questions or concerns, I'm open to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Green. I don't have any other questions on the budgetary numbers. As we pointed out earlier, there is a reduction in staff to the Department of Parks. Also, and Mr. Ray, I think I'll get this right. Let me make sure I do. Correct me if I'm wrong, but over the past few years, well, the Recreation Fund ran a deficit and had an outstanding balance years ago, and a new tax was implemented or it was expanded to pay for the park services. And this has occurred again, so that the general fund has been paying into the recreation fund. And so that transfer has been eliminated and replaced with a 0.25 mil increase in the recreation tax. So it doesn't really change kind of how it's paid for, but it represents the reality of what the parks are costing us to maintain. Did I get that about right, Mr. Ray?
You're correct, Mayor.
Thank you. So with that, I don't have any more questions on your budget. Well, I do have one question on the budget, and I'm trying to see here. Okay, there's the representation of the 0.25 in line, in the third line right there is the representation of the 0.25 tax increase. I have no further questions. Questions from the budget team? Questions from City Council? And questions from community members?
We have one. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, I have actually a couple questions. One is supplies and materials. There was a proposal for $750 for food. What food was being supplied or bought, if I may ask?
No, food is eliminated. I'm not sure. That might have been for a parks program, maybe.
Yes, that's what it was for the youth program. They would have a food allocation in previous years, but they do not have anything for 2021.
Right, okay. And another question, as far as the concessions, there's $5,000 projected. Where does that money come from? Is that from the complex concession stands? Is that from other places?
Is that from the batting cages? Or is that a separate line item? You're on mute, Director. Director Green, you're on mute.
All right, I apologize. Yeah, concession is actually funding that we receive from vendors who are at our events. We're having the softball tournaments and things like that. And also the gentleman who has like the ice cream and stuff shop out there as well.
Okay. Well, I know he runs a lot of tournaments. Is there like receipts as far as how much are we getting a percentage of his gross, or is he being charged a monthly fee, or how does that number equal to exactly $5,000 for amended budget for 2020?
Yeah, it is actually with him. I want to say, I'm pretty sure it was a percentage with him, but then also when we have like food trucks and stuff like that that come in, we actually charge them a flat fee.
Okay, so he paid us $5,000 in 2020.
No.
And with the food trucks?
We only received $1,000 because we didn't have a lot of the food trucks this year because of COVID.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at the budget. So the amended, that's what we got. Am I right?
That's what was budgeted for 2020. The projections for 2020 are some of them are up to date and some are not, and that's due to our limitations for 2 months of being unable to access our financial system because of the break-in. So I'm not sure if that very well, because of the limitations they had with holding events at the stadium, that may be an actual number. So they had budgeted for 5,000 for 2020, received only 1,000. But if all things go well for next year, they should be back to the 5,000, which I believe historically is what they normally budget for and receive.
Okay, is there any type of sheet that will show their sales, so the public can see what we're actually making off of them?
Are you talking about one individual, or are you talking about every vendor that comes out there?
One or all, doesn't matter.
Okay. We don't have that information for you right now, but we can get that information for you.
Okay. Where can I find it?
You can reach out to me.
Okay.
Any other questions from the community? Okay, hearing none, excuse me, we'll move on with the ice rink. We've got big new news in the ice rink, right? Director Green, is that your cue?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up here, Mayor. All right. Overview for ice rink. The ice rink was built for the use of the public to enjoy ice skating and ice hockey. The rink is also used for small events, birthday parties, ice skating lessons, team ice hockey play. Major accomplishment in 2020 was issuing a request for proposal to seek interest in either a new manager for the rink or at least an agreement. The city entered into an agreement with Black Bear Sports Group to operate the rink, with the city receiving a lease payment from Black Bear. The goals was to increase the community use of the ice rink for 21, and revenue, an approximate $60,000 increase in revenue will be coming back to the city with the ice rink in 2021. And also an expense decreasing and subsidizing the operation of the rink. So now we're no longer paying to operate the rink, and we're also increasing the revenue by $63,000. So that's all I have here.
Do you recall what we were paying for the last contract? Was it approximately 40,000, something like that?
It was like $53,000.
53,000. So this contract that we just entered into essentially made us about $110,000 a year, correct?
You're correct.
So for all of the years of the existence of the ice skating rink, we have finally found a great management team to actually follow through over there and provide revenue back to the city. So that's a great accomplishment. It's the only accomplishment listed there, and it's a great one. So thank you. I want to thank you for your work on that, Director Green.
Thank you.
I have no further questions on the budget. Budget team members? Council members? And members of the community?
We have one. Anthony, go ahead.
Hey, Anthony.
Good evening. Just wanted to know, I was looking here at the expenses for the ice skating rink. It looks like it's $965,250. Am I correct in that? That was expenses paid out by the city, or is that expenses that are divvied through different factions that are involved with the actual ice skating rink venture with the city?
That was what was budgeted for 2020. The old agreement that was in place involved us having to budget for expenses that the company had. So that's why it looks like there was a lot of revenue coming in and there was expenses for it in previous years. And unfortunately, we do not have the projections, but I believe historically, we never actually saw any additional revenue or a surplus of revenue come from the ice rink. It was actually the reverse. That was the result of their expenses being higher and than what was budgeted for the revenue. So this is a little misleading when it looks like we're actually losing revenue and with this program, but that's only because you don't see what was really spent in 2020 yet. So this column here is what was budgeted in 2020. So there was much higher expenses than now the new company, they actually absorb all those costs. And the only cost that we have in here expense wise is actually that is for equipment, isn't it?
Condensers.
Yes, so that's a lease we have that is in the city's name that we'll have to continue to pay for. But we're not responsible for any other expenses for running any of these expenses for running the ice rink now.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add to this. So I'm looking at the 2021 draft budget. It's showing 22,348. Is that expected what we're supposed to kick out on our behalf, correct? That's like a big difference from the 965, right?
Correct. Now that's all we have, which is what that lease that I just discussed. We're stuck with that one because we're the name on the lease payment, but all other expenses are the responsibility of the new company.
My last question in regards to this, the private company that's taking over the responsibilities that you guys have basically allotted them, that's the Big Bear company, correct?
Black Bear, yes.
Oh, I apologize. The Black Bear company. Is there some sort of profit incentive for them, or is it just purely how do I say on a volunteer basis, or sort of like are they receiving some sort of grants on their end to cover those expenses? Because those are, I mean, that's close to $1 million in expenses that they're just willing to take over. Is there some sort of incentive on their end?
Well, no, this company is a big company and they have ice rinks all up and down the 95 corridor. They actually own the rink where the Washington Capitals actually practice at. They have a couple rinks out in Chicago. So this is what they do. Their customer service base is top notch, beginning programs. So they'll be actually funding this all on their own.
Thank you very much for that information, sir. My last question with regards to that would be, will them taking over the aspects, whichever aspects they are taking over, I'm guessing management aspects, duties and stuff like that, will that increase the admission prices or any other charges that the residents would normally pay? Potentially?
Potentially, there could be a possibility of that.
Okay.
But talking to the group, I mean, they want to increase the public usage, which we haven't been getting over the years. But that is something that they are focusing on.
Correct.
And I was able to take tours of other facilities that they had, and that was their main focus, was getting public usage in their facilities, and whatever cost that may be to them, they would definitely work on that for us.
Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to ask was that 64,165 in potential revenue expected for 2021. That's based off of what percentage of overall revenue that the ice skating rink is projected to make, that we're getting on our behalf of the city. Sorry, what is our percentage point of that?
You're talking about for loans, programs, income, rents?
Isn't that for the contract that we have?
Yes, that's the lease payment.
Okay, all right.
We will actually get all of that.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
No problem.
Director Green, let me throw one more thing in there, and that is that when we met with Black Bear, there was a discussion about their commitment to youth programs for the youth of York City to try and engage them. As we know, this is a facility paid for by York City taxpayers, but with not a proportional usage by the young people of York City. So I know that was a discussion. Have you had any, do you have anything that you can expand on that?
For me, or?
Yes, you.
Yes. I mean, as of right now, I haven't, been in contact with them as of late. But that is something that they still are working towards from our last conversations.
Thank you. Any further questions from the community on the ice skating rink? All right, we will move towards Bureau of Wastewater Treatment. And we have the wastewater treatment plant.
That's going to be, again, Frankie's a little under the weather today. He's not on with us, but I will be going over this. The Bureau is responsible for safeguarding the environment and public health by maintaining the highest level of treatment of wastewater at the lowest attainable cost to the customers. The wastewater treatment plant treats and disposes the residuals from wastewater in a manner that meets the standards mandated by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and the United States Environmental Protection Agency. So, one second here, I have the accomplishments here, but. All right, so I'm working off two computers here, so. All right, so the accomplishments for 2020 out of the wastewater treatment plant. So completed the repairs of the primary clarifiers project at cost of approximately $1.2 million. The project will protect final clarifiers in the filtration process from harmful debris. Also 80% completion of the filtration replacement project. This will improve permit compliance with solids and phosphorus removal. And third, process control improvements providing us with better compliance results. And I apologize, the font is very small in this I'm looking at. But for the 2021 goals would be the skater replacement, digester cleanup, and headwork gate number 2 repair. So that will be the goals for 2021. And now moving back to and honestly, just kind of going through the budget, was able to go through this earlier and was all involved with this. There were some professional services. We've seen actually an increase in other professional services, which were for the projects that were listed. Other than that, everything pretty much either went down slightly or stayed pretty much the same. But we did see an increase in the contractual services, and that would be for those projects that I mentioned for 2021. So if there are any questions, concerns, I'm open.
I don't have any questions. I would point out at this time, though, that the Sewer Authority has come back to us with a report that says that the plant requires $37 million worth of improvements over the next 10 years. And that doesn't include anything additional that might come up over the next 10 years. That's just what we need right now, $37 million. The city of York, and as you look at the value of dollars and the cost of materials, you're talking that $37 million in today's cost, potentially going up to $50 million over time. And the city's responsibility is 46% of that, even though we only use about 32% of the capacity of the plant. The agreement with the other municipalities still forces us to pay 46% of all of the expenses that they are also benefiting from. So that is $23 million over the next 10 years at minimum that we are going to have to come up with just to keep that wastewater treatment plant running. So that is one of the issues that we have run into when it comes to the wastewater treatment plant and whether or not it is actually an asset to the city of York. While it has value as a plant, the cost of operating it does not appear to be an asset to the city of York. That is my opinion. Everybody is welcome to theirs, but that is the opinion of, I believe, certainly everyone that has worked on the budget and is assessing what our next move should be for the city of York regarding a 2021 budget. Any questions from the budget team? Any questions from city council?
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes.
If in fact we can't get rid of the wastewater treatment plant, what is our next step? How does it affect the budget in the city?
If we cannot get rid of the wastewater treatment plant, then the budget that is provided to you right now is the best option that the administration is offering to city council. City council can accept it or they can amend it as they decide.
But if in fact we get rid of it, will all the layoffs have to take place, or will we be able to salvage some of those jobs?
No, we will be able to salvage all of the jobs if we are able to get a good bid for the wastewater treatment plant. Option B, which we have not discussed at all, but I just finished a couple of interviews and a story for the newspaper that should be in the newspaper on Sunday. What I've been calling option B is the sale of the wastewater treatment plant. And at that time, $17 million can be transferred from the income from the wastewater treatment plant that would fill our $14 million gap and provide $3 million for a 20% tax cut for all of the homeowners in the city of York, all of the property owners in the city of York.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions from council? Any questions from the community members?
We have quite a few. Joel, go ahead.
Hey, I want to start this off respectfully. If you guys could not say get rid of the plant because there are people that are working there. There are revenues here that says 43,000 and the drafted for 2021 is 5675. I apologize, Chaz. I know this is not your job, but can we explain why there's such a big difference? Is it because you guys are projecting to sell the plant, or is there another reason?
All right, so you're looking here at the electric demand response?
No, I'm looking at revenues. 2020 amended is 43, 2020 projected is 43, 2021 draft budget is 5675.
All right, so actually when you start going down, so you're looking at license and permits, which that's the $5,600. So what we are currently missing is the electric demand response. Currently, we don't have a contract with that, and I know we were actually in the process of trying to get a new contract for electric demand response. So that should be coming through soon, so you should be able to see a change on there at some point.
Okay, got you. And as far as the, hold on, I'm on my laptop as well. I'm trying to stay with you guys. I believe it was the other professional services. It went from 100K to 600K.
Yes, $85,000. So this is kind of what the mayor was talking about earlier, where he was talking about, you know, we're 46% on a lot of these projects that we're working with the sewer authority on, which are projects. So if you look, if the 2021 goals that I had mentioned,
yes,
such as skater replacement, digester cleanup, and headwork gate number 2 repair. So these funds are actually going to be put there so we can make, so we can fix these items that I just mentioned.
Okay. Another question. What was it proposed to talk to some of the members and see if they were willing to retire rather than the overall layoff?
Yeah, that's not my area, but
we're certainly open to discussions. I think there was a question regarding whether or not there would be some kind of payment to retire early. And that is not within our budgets right now to pay anybody to retire early. Folks can, if they have the time, they can retire and they can get their pension as long as they have their proper time in. But there is no additional benefit. But if there are individuals that want to retire because they're ready to retire, and it's just a matter of, do I do it now or do I do it in 6 months or a year? That would certainly be a benefit to the younger workers.
Right. What about, I don't know if this is the place for this, but what about potentially giving people the points or whatever it takes to get them to retirement age so they can receive their pension when they do retire, or if they decide to retire? Has that been thought of?
I think that is a discussion that we are having, and it has to, again, it goes back to your representatives. I respect that you are asking these questions. However, it would be more appropriate, as you are a member of a bargaining unit, to make sure that your representatives are bringing your arguments to the meetings that we are having.
Can I be invited to those meetings?
You would have to ask your representatives. You are a member of a union. We have nothing to do with that. The workers in your group have chosen to be part of a union. And so there are very specific rules about what we can discuss with you and what we can't discuss with you, and what we have to discuss with your representatives. So as long as you all choose to be part of this union, then you have to play by their rules, and you should be talking with them.
Yeah, Mayor, real quick, a couple of points. One, the business agent has reached out to me to schedule a meeting with him and the union's labor council, along and meet with me and Ms. Robertson and our labor council. So that's going to be the initial meeting. Second, as far as retirement, under the Teamsters contract, there's a formula to be eligible for retirement, and it's age plus years of service has to equal a certain total. However, if I remember correctly, under the officers and employees pension, an individual is not eligible to receive their pension until they reach age 60.
Understood. There have been times in the past where people were, I don't want to say bought out, but given points towards their retirement to allow them to retire early. That's all I'm asking, but I'll talk to my representative as the mayor suggested. Thank you.
Sure, thanks.
Okay, next person is Anthony. Anthony, you're on. Go ahead and unmute.
Good evening. I wanted to touch on what the mayor was speaking on as far as the percentage that the city bears for expenses on the wastewater plant. So you stated it was about 46%, if I'm not mistaken, and the rest of the municipalities are paying. Obviously, they're splitting that latter percent. So how can we get that? How can we negotiate that with the other municipalities to see if we can get these percentages readjusted? Is that based on a population count density in our area as opposed to where, you know, their population count is, or is that something that could be put on the table? Have we tried that at least with any of the other representatives in the other areas that are sharing this facility and its services with us?
Mr. Gutierrez, this is based on a 1976 agreement with the other municipalities. And we have not only tried, we have brought in lawyers, we have spent well over $100,000, particularly under Mayor Bracey's administration, to try and get a new agreement, what is called the intermunicipal sewer agreement. And those parties have refused to come to the table. There is no reason for them to come to the table because there is no sunset clause in this agreement. So they can take advantage of this for as long as they want to.
Is there any possibility of some sort of amendment to the agreement? And if not, just two-part question: is there a possibility of an amendment, as well as is there any way to escalate this to a higher authority, maybe, you know, within the state of Pennsylvania, so we can get this negotiation on the table? Because it's obviously a little bit of a crippling expense. But I do feel like the wastewater treatment plant is still needed. And I think, it's a good thing for the people of the city to have as a source of employment, not just with the private parties, because once private parties take over, then, I'm pretty sure there will hopefully be some sort of agreement within the contract with the private ownership to keep the jobs with the former employees. But I think there's also certain things in place, such as a sunset clause, for lack of better terms, where private authorities could then, make adjustments or, adjustments, whether it's with pay or with employment status.
Well, you asked two different questions there, so I would be,
apologize.
no. I'm just trying to keep them in order. I would be happy if you went and lobbied the other municipalities to get them to do what's right, but they have yet to do that. And this is a legal document that whoever wrote it in 1976 did not put any clause in it to adjust it based on the actual usage or future environmental laws that may change the capacity of the plant, that have changed the capacity of the plant. So we have, again, Mayor Bracy spent a good bit of effort and money on bringing in attorneys that thought that they could get a new municipal intermunicipal agreement, and it has not happened. So we continued to work on that, and there was no movement. So we have tried and tried, and did not see our partners come to what is a fair agreement. So there's not much further we can go on that. The second one, I cannot speak of very much. Were you, and actually remind me what the core of your question was, because you started mentioning something about employees working for the next company. Well, what was your real question before that?
Well, I was just basically touching on the issues with private ownership when taking over these, formerly owned facilities by municipalities or cities or local governments. There's always a potential for the private companies to make adjustments, whether it's layoffs or a change in policy. Will there be some sort of agreement in place once this facility is sold with the city and the new owners, if it was to be sold, where these people's jobs are protected, their pay is protected? And if so, is there a possibility where you can add some sort of timeline in which, these private companies cannot make any changes to the employees who are here now, to their salaries, their pensions and what have you, these things that they're basically benefiting from while being city employees working for the wastewater treatment plant?
I see that you're ready to speak so that I don't say anything that I'm not supposed to. So go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. As stated yesterday in the RFP, we have a requirement that the successful bidder, one, make an offer to all employees in good standing to go to work for the successful bidder. Also, since the majority of the employees are union, to honor their contract until its termination date, which is December 31, 2022. Then it would be up for renegotiation. That also includes keeping the same rate of pay and the same level of benefits.
Okay. My last question with regards to this is the city able to maybe, because Mayor Helfrich, I heard you when you said, you suggest that we go out and lobby to try to get these adjustments made throughout the municipalities for the percentages that they bear and expenses for the wastewater treatment plant. Is that something that the city could support us in and maybe rally us as a community, as the city of York, to make awareness of the issue with the overall percentage that we bear in expenses, as well as, to potentially save the facility and keep it within the city? Is there any way you could maybe start a petition, or maybe we can do something as a community together with the backing of the mayor and his?
Certainly would be willing to work with the community. However, at this point in time, the intermunicipal sewer agreement is going to have little to do with the sale or whether we sell the wastewater treatment. You're not covering the tens of millions of dollars that we need by changing that agreement right now. If it would have been changed 20 years ago, it might have had some effect on where we are right now, but it doesn't today.
Thank you.
And by the way, we are in discussions on the draft agreements. I made that statement, and I know in my head approximately what we're paying versus what the municipalities are paying. But if somebody wants to bring us some numbers, we're happy to do that. We have plenty of time before this budget gets voted on, I believe. So if somebody wants to bring us numbers of what it would look like, what the savings would be, if the other municipalities would pay their fair share, then I would be open to looking at that. It's just the knowledge that I have leads me to believe that those numbers are not going to be significant in light of the crisis that the city is facing right now.
I hear you. Just one last thing, and not a particular question. Could you just, if you have it off the top of your head, the municipalities that are also benefiting from this wastewater treatment plant, could you give me a quick list of what they are, or just shout out some names of them so I can just write them down?
I feel like I'm not going to get them all, but let's see. We've got West York, West Manchester, North York, Manchester, Spring Garden, and what am I missing, folks?
Springersbury?
Well, Springersbury has a line that comes in, but they're not part of the intermunicipal agreement. They're part of a side contract. Does York Township have anything running this far up?
Yes, you're missing.
Yeah, York Township does.
York Township is the other. So basically, every municipality that surrounds the city of York, except for except for Springersbury, which actually Springersbury doesn't touch the city of York.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Yep, thank you. Next question.
Okay, next up we have Kurt. Go ahead and unmute your mic.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hey, Kurt.
I have a couple questions about the plant. My first question would be, do we know about how much money did we lose bringing this amnesty program in? Because I think you can either cut 100%, have a clean slate, or just pay 50%. So do we know how much money that we actually lost of people not paying their sewer bills?
Well, the premise is that we didn't lose any money because most of that money, or much of that money, was not money that we were going to be able to get back. So when you have somebody who has no money and has a house that is worth $30,000 and owes people money, and we try and take the house, well, then any value of that house, which is going to be limited, that money then goes to other individuals that they owe the money to. So it was better for us, we believe, to keep people in their homes and have people start from scratch from today and put them in position saying, look, we took that $2,000 off of your back, but now you've got to pay that $80 a month. Or else it's going to get cut off. So it was unlikely that we were going to collect some of that money. Yes, we did. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, I'm sorry, but it's similar to credit card companies. When there is no way to really get anything, and you say, all right, well, if you'll give me 20 cents on the dollar, then we're going to call it even. Well, we didn't go 20 cents on the dollar. We went 50 cents on the dollar and 75 cents on the dollar for a payment plan, which is much better than a credit card company gets when they are stuck in the same situation.
Oh, okay. So I'm guessing it was definitely millions that the people in the city owed then.
Oh yeah, the total owed was, where were we at, Tom? 11 million?
Yes, sir. And that was
Yeah,
and sewer.
yeah, the people of the, here's what happened. The people of the city owed about 13 million back around 2013 under the last mayor's administration. They worked the program to try and get that money down, and they got it down. They got money back. But then the effort to continue that program was not kept in place due to computer issues and other things here at the city of York. And that number then went back up to 11 million. And so we're facing this 11 million. We know that we have a billing problem with the computer systems here that were put in place under the last administration, and it still hadn't worked out, still wouldn't be working today even. And so we wanted to transfer all of that over to, all the billing over to the York Water Company, but we had to do something with all these remaining balances. So the dual purpose of the sewer amnesty program was to deal with the balance, or actually triple purpose, deal with those balances, collect as much money as we could without kicking people out of their houses. That's why we use the federal poverty guideline to give that 100% relief. If you're under the federal poverty guideline and you still do own a house, a lot of those folks are retired. You know, home ownership is not not where we want it here in the city. So the idea of ripping all these homes away from people was difficult to swallow, particularly when we know that a lot of the folks are retired individuals, widows and widowers, and so we tried to find a way to collect as much money as possible, but be as compassionate as possible at the same time.
Okay. All right. So when you transferred the billing to York Water, do they now get a percentage of the sewer bills?
They do.
That should come to us?
They do, but they collect a lot more than we have. So we end up getting more money.
All right, that's good. And the last question I do have is, all the revenue that the wastewater treatment plant makes with sewer, does all that revenue go into the general fund?
No, and here's something that changed this year. And Tom Ray, I'm going to count on you to correct me if I'm wrong, because I just really learned about it recently. But for years and years, we have been transferring money from the sewer fees into the general fund to pay for those expenses. Oh, I'm seeing a no from Kim Robertson. Kim, are you correcting me before I get anything out?
Yeah, Mayor, we made a mistake last night when before the budget meeting, when we were talking about this. There is a transfer from the sewer fund into the general fund in 2021.
Oh.
So my apologies for providing you incorrect information about that.
Okay, so Tom, since I was provided incorrect information, I'm going to leave it on you to provide any correct information to this gentleman's question.
Okay. First of all, the sewer fund is not for the operation of the plant. It's primarily to pay for debt service and sewer maintenance. The city has typically transferred approximately $2.5 million to $3 million each year from the sewer fund into the general fund to help balance the general fund. And that's what's happening again in 2021 to help balance the general fund budget. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I'm good. All right, thank you guys so much.
All right, thanks, Kurt. Who do we have next?
Okay, next we have Matt. Matt, you can unmute your mic.
Yeah, I just have a question, and maybe Chaz can answer this. So the salaries went up from 1,423,000 to 1,644,000. Is that just contractual increases, or does that include any kind of management or non-affiliated?
I'm going to let Kim or Tom answer that question.
There are no non-affiliated pay increases budgeted for 2021.
And I think something's being looked at wrong. The numbers went, the salaries went down. That middle column, don't count that middle column. We're looking at the left column versus, which is 2020 versus
Oh,
the
okay.
right column.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I was a little confused because it looked like it went up, but I was.
And Mr. Rose, the reason
Unfortunately,
why it went down is that there were 27 pays in 2020, and now we're back to the normal 26 in 2021.
well, we're also eliminating positions.
And eliminate, not in the wastewater treatment plant. No, I'm sorry. Yes, we are. My
The
apologies.
operations manager position.
Right.
Right, that's why I was asking, because I know there was some of the salaries taken out, and it looked like there was an increase. That's why I was confused there. The
We
other,
apologize, Matt. As has been stated multiple times, because of the attack on the computer systems, we were not able to get reasonable projected numbers for the middle column.
and the second question I have has to do with outside. I don't know what line item it would be. I don't have a budget in front of me, but outside contractual services. I don't know if that would be, yeah. So I know, Chaz, you had mentioned that there are a number of projects that were going on. My curiosity is in like HVAC contractors, control systems 21, contracting, all that. What line item is that taken out of? Do you know? And is that all in one area? Is that all together? Is that broken out at all?
I believe that's down in contractual services.
I think it depends on the service.
Right, but the big number, the control systems 21, that comes out of contractual services.
Yeah.
That's why that one's $1.5 million, and professional services is only, the 845 is basically the engineering and stuff like that for improvement projects. As Chaz pointed out earlier, that's why that went up 500,000 under other professional services. But if you can scroll down to contractual services and go down a little bit further.
Sorry, I'm looking other stuff up.
There should be some big numbers down here. Other contractual services. That's where your CS 21s are.
And looking at that, it actually went down from
Yep.
last year.
Yep.
Yeah, I just didn't, I wasn't able to see it, so I just wanted to see the actual number. So, okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. And next, is there
Okay.
next?
Joel, you're back on.
Yes, I have a couple questions. One being, are we still under the governor or maybe president declaration of disaster clause?
We are still under a declaration of emergency, I believe, from the state level, and we are also under a declaration of emergency at the local level.
Okay, does that make contracts null and void with the municipalities and, you know, whoever they have the contracts with?
I haven't heard anything like that. I think the governor and the president might be able to take extreme steps in extreme times. The president at one point had invoked some emergency powers acts from, I think, under the Korean War or World War II that would have allowed him to do stuff like that. But I hadn't heard anything like that locally. So we can check with our solicitor, but I have not heard of such a thing. And I think I would have through all my contacts with other mayors and organizations, the U.S. Conference of Mayors and things like that.
Okay, I didn't know if the solicitor was going to talk or not. Should I continue?
Yeah, go ahead. He's not on, I don't believe.
Okay, yeah, well, just in general, the Declaration of Disaster Act kind of nulls and voids contracts. That goes from the president to governors, and then from the governors, it's allotted to municipalities, which, you know, would be you. I know we had an agreement that we had to go and sign or agree with that went against our contract. I just wanted to know if it was still in place or if it wasn't in place. And the reason why I'm asking is if it is, will we be able to negotiate with those other municipalities or areas to get them to pay more for using our wastewater treatment plant? That's why I'm asking.
Joel, I like your thinking, and we will definitely investigate that.
No problem.
I'm serious. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. I actually have the PDF. If you want it, I can send it to you. I have the whole governor's rules and everything else. The $2 to $3 million that are transferred to the general fund from the wastewater treatment plant. You said that's been going on for, I don't want to misquote you.
Since the early 2000s.
Okay, so if we sell the plant, what are we going to supplement to fund whatever that $2 to $3 million was actually paying for?
Well, part of it is that we lose all the costs of running the plant, but we are not going to sell this thing for pennies. There will be significant funds in place. This is one of the reasons why I had mixed feelings about leasing it in the first place, because we were potentially going to be losing funds, and they were not extremely significant funds back at that time. There have been changes in legislation since that time that allow for the bidders to basically bid auction style or for open bidding and at market value. And our expectation is that we will receive bids high enough that it will make up for those losses of revenue.
And
Now, I would tell you one other thing. That revenue is actually disappearing very rapidly. As I just told you about the $23 million over 10 years, well, that's 2.3 million a year. And if we're only transferring 3 million a year and 2.3 of it is now eaten up by new repairs that we have to make, then that transfer is disappearing by the year anyhow.
Understood. I understand that.
Mayor, may I make one correction?
Yes, please.
The transfer is not from the wastewater treatment plant, it's from the sewer fund. The wastewater treatment plant is funded from the intermunicipal sewer fund. Two
Right.
different.
So how do we pay our portion of the intermunicipal sewer fund?
That's paid for by the city, so out of the general fund.
General fund. So you're saying that 100% of our sewer fees, when we pay sewer and refuse fees, are only supposed to be going to fix the collection system?
Well, it's also for debt service.
For whose debt service?
I'm gonna pass that one to Cherie because I'm sure I'm going to flub it up. So I'm gonna get the expert on the line.
We're in our fourth hour. Are you still with us, Cherie? We do have to wrap this up here shortly. So
There she is.
Cherie?
Yes. The debt service for the wastewater treatment plant or the sewer revenue bonds, the city's responsible for upfronting all the money for the payment for the debt service. However, each one of the municipalities, we bill for their share, their portion of the debt service according to the agreement. The debt service is paid out of the sewer fund, not the intermunicipal sewer fund.
Thank you. So, Mr. Ray, I come back to you and say that the sewer fund is paying for the wastewater treatment fund. It's paying for all the bonds that are taking out to make those improvements that we're talking about. So that $2.3 million that we're going to have to pay annually over the next 10 years or however it is done out, maybe we only have to do interest for the first 9 and then we have the bulk payment. So we still have to put this stuff in escrow somewhere. But this is money that is coming out of our sewer fees and is eliminating the money that would be available to transfer to the general fund.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, Joel, we're getting pretty late here. Can I answer anything, or can we answer anything else for you?
Yeah, I actually had a question and it kind of slipped my mind.
Well, we have two more bureaus if you want to come back to us.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. And do we have anybody else lined up?
Okay, we have Anthony. Go ahead, Anthony, unmute.
My last question, I'll keep it brief. So I'm listening to how the general fund is funded on behalf of the wastewater treatment plant, and with the sale, as obviously it's like a looming decision that I know nobody likes. Let's say we do sell the wastewater treatment plant for however sum of money it would be. How long will we? I know we really can't come up with a figure right now for what it would potentially sell for, but in order to dip back into the general fund like how it was doing, how do we plan to do that once the money that we use up from selling it is gone? How do we supplement that in years to come? I mean, that's probably going to be a couple years from now, but
part of it is that the money that we receive will be set aside to pay the pension.
Mayor,
So
we can hear you.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
yes, I can hear you.
Part of it is that the money that we receive is going to be put aside to pay off our debts and to put in escrow to continue to pay off the pension payments, the pension arrears that we have, so that they won't be part of our budget expenses anymore. So if we can pay things off now, or at least put the money aside so we don't have to take it out of our children's bank accounts, then we are far better off.
But eventually we will have to reevaluate our children's bank accounts for the reference that you're making in the future to figure out how we're going to gain that revenue after that money is dried up.
Eventually, you are absolutely right. And this is why this is a systemic problem. Every municipality, I talked to the mayor of Lancaster today. She's $5 million in the hole over there. We're 14 million here. Allentown and Scranton already sold their wastewater treatment plants because they were so far in the hole. We are all the victims of a taxation system that was created in Harrisburg over 60 years ago, or approximately 60 years ago, when wealthy businesses were here in the city, when more wealthy residents were in the city. And that taxation system, Harrisburg refuses to change it in light of the fact that we now have some of the poorest people, some of the lowest income people in the entire state in our cities, particularly in York. We have the 5th lowest income in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Those wealthy industries have many of them fled. Thank you to all of you that are still here, but we don't have the 13 buildings of American Chain and Cable out through the East End anymore. Dentsply is leaving this year. Gladfelder left. You could run down how many industries have left, how many tax-paying entities have left since the 1960s when these tax systems were created. This is a system designed to kill cities. And until Harrisburg fixes it, our cities are going to be killed. So yes, this is a horrible decision that we have to make between killing our city now with a 40-some% tax increase and laying people off, or do we sell the thing that we have that is still costing us money? So it's hard to call it an asset because it's costing us so much money. But do we sell the thing that we have that can get us through the next 20 years? Or do we throw our hands up now and tax everybody out of their homes and watch our city turn into a ghost town? That's the decision that I'm facing, and that's the decision that the city is facing. I don't like any of this, but we didn't make the rules. Harrisburg made the rules, and they refused to change them based on new information.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, sir.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
That's it here. I believe we have one from Facebook. Melanie?
Yes, Melanie.
Yes. What's the timeline for the proposals of the plant? And so I think, Tom, that's a question about the proposal of the timeline of the plant.
I can answer. December 9th.
Sorry.
December 9th, they are due. And so we have the last council meeting of the year is December 15th. I am hoping, actually, I'm not hoping, I am planning to be able to offer council all of the information on option B on a budget that does not raise the taxes. It actually cuts them by 20%. It does not raise these fees. It does not lay off our employees. We can offer a budget before the last meeting in December, within plenty of time for council to make the legal decision that they have to make, the vote that they have to make before the end of the year. And I apologize on behalf of the entire city of York for us not being able to do it quicker. We were in position to get this done in October when this individual came in and smashed our computer systems. That put us all 2 to 3 months behind, which is why we don't look like we have it more together. We started this process back in January so that we anticipated this. My administration had anticipated this. We were having meetings in January and February with the best minds that we could find to see if there were other answers other than selling the wastewater treatment plant, because we knew these debts were coming. We didn't know how bad it was going to be. We didn't know COVID was going to cost us another $5 million. But we knew the pension increases were coming. We knew the savings was gone. We've known this for almost a year, and we've prepared for it. And that's why we have an option B of being able to sell the wastewater treatment plant if the bids come in at a reasonable price. Unfortunately, it got delayed, so that I'm having to ask council to be patient enough with the administration to let us get the information before you make your final decisions. So December 9th was the answer.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions from the community? Okay, we have 2 more left, and I think these are going to be quick ones. We'll see. Municipal Industrial Pretreatment Program. I believe I saw Miss Veronica on there.
Mayor, she just came down from upstairs. Her computer battery died because we've been on for so long. So she's gonna trade me spots here, so she'll log in on mine. All right.
Great. Hi, Veronica. Sorry that we killed your computer.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. I'm Veronica Whaley, the manager for the Industrial Pretreatment Program. The program regulates all of the industries that discharge to the wastewater treatment plant. This program is required under our state discharge permit and by federal regulation. So basically, I enforce local and federal wastewater regulations on the industries. This protects the treatment plant and the sewer system. So through sampling and inspection, that's mostly how that's accomplished. And I also help the wastewater treatment plant with special projects as needed. We usually have 2 people, but we've had 1 position, that pretreatment compliance officer position, that's been vacant for a while. The Chapter 94 report, which is an annual wastewater treatment report in 2020, was submitted on time for a 2020 accomplishment, and the federal annual report was also submitted on time, and all of our requirements were met for 2020. For this year, with COVID and the computer vandalism that happened at City Hall, it was pretty challenging for the pretreatment program because all of the industries were also dealing with changes with COVID. So I had to adapt to each one of those to be able to monitor and make sure that they were still compliant. Next year, we will, for our goals, continue to meet our program requirements. I think it's notable that this year, with everything going on, we still are meeting our regulatory requirements for the pretreatment program. By the end of the year, I will have invoiced almost $500,000 in surcharge and analytical fee costs. So there's going to be some nominal decreases in revenue next year, and this is mostly due to changes in the industries and how they've changed their processes. Those are noticed and called out in the budget. And there are some lab fee changes and some very slight changes in some of the supplies, and it just better reflects the budget. Most of those are decreases. If you have any questions, let me know.
I just want to say that you are a small but mighty department there, and I really feel bad about having to take that other position out of there, because I know you could use the help. But thank you for doing all the work that you do, and for bringing in revenue. Nearly, well, now it's going to be about 3 times higher than the cost of your actual bureau. So thank you very much for all that work. I have no questions on your budget. Great budget, great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the budget team, any questions? Members of council, any questions? And community members, any questions? With that, our final budget is the sewer maintenance budget.
Can you hear me?
Thank you, Veronica. Yep.
No
Yeah, that Percy, very good. We can hear you.
Yes. Okay, this is Percy from the City Sewer Department. We take care of over 90 miles of sewer line. We also attend to 15,000 laterals that are connected to our sewer system. That being said, like every other department, we were affected by the furlough system as well. With the happy note to come out of it, we have 3 accredited collection licensed employees that have come out of that as well. We have flushed 1/3 of the 90 miles of sewer line. We intend on doing more. And within doing so with that, we also fixed 4 laterals connected to the sewer system in itself. We also have TV. We have TV a lot of emergency lines with our own TV vehicle, but we do not TV most of the city as of now, because we have a contract with Columbia Gas, or an agreement with Columbia Gas via USG, who they've contracted to video most, if not all, the city lines to see if they've burrowed through their system, their gas lines have burrowed through the system. And we will receive the information from that and do so as time moves on. We've attacked a lot of the high grease lines, as well as the rag areas, and doing so, hitting the heavy apartment complexes, as well as the restaurants, would give us this grease and high rags and other debris that shouldn't be put into the system. We are doing our educational aspect of it by pushing out flyers and pamphlets in these particular 2 areas, so we can help people understand what you should not be putting into the sewer system. Those are accomplishments for 2020. Moving on to 2021. We will continue to try our best to finish off the other 2/3 of the city in reference to flushing the system. And as I stated earlier, with the USG being the contracted employees for Columbia Gas, we will take the information from there, partner with our engineers, and see what direction we can go in terms of making the city's sewer system a little better with the funds we have to do so. We also are attempting to employ a better system in marking our PA1 call. A lot of our maps and information is extremely outdated. It needs to be better upkept, as well as brought up to speed into 2020, 2021 understanding. This will help us be able to not only mark more efficiently, but also be more accurate, so the customers at large who ask for information will get it, and there will be no mistakes that we've come across already. We're using some of our training monies that are set aside for us to upgrade the rest of our employees, so they are brought up to speed with their collection licenses that is brought for us. Another accomplishment we'll try to have is continue passing out flyers and trying to educate some of our customers so they are better understanding, again, what to and what to not put into the sewer system to heavily clog it up. We've reduced our revenue and going into 2021 by $500,000. At this point, I ask any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can we pull up that budget? I'm having a little difficulty finding the $700,000 reduction.
500, sir.
No, but on the budget here, the expenses, and for some reason in my copy, I don't have your revenues. Is there a revenue? Am I missing a revenue page, or did budget team, did we not include revenue? Because they don't actually make revenue, they just get it.
Right, we just collect, correct.
Okay, all right. You had mentioned something about revenue. But the if you look at the line 1, amended budget was 1,770,000. Now we're down at 1 million. I'm trying to find where these reductions are. I mean, I see the 100 and, 110 for the employee. Yeah, the special items, but that special items is the insurance allocations, and they're made up over there. So that can't be the number. That can't be where the money is.
No, Mayor, it's actually, and I don't think it's showing on here, but it's the $500,000, which would have been out of construction budget, but then everything that went along with that, like engineering fees and stuff like that.
Oh, so
I don't see it showing up on here, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
because it zeroed out in the budget, it didn't show up here. Oh wait, there's the 500,000.
Yeah, at the bottom, there was other costs associated in that account, such as engineering.
That's where it is. Thank you. I didn't see it. It's the very, very last line and I missed it. Very good. That's the only question that I had. Budget team, any questions? Council members, any questions? And questions from community members?
Joel, go ahead.
Hey, I see the salary, so you guys are planning to lay off a few employees. I know I got a list from the mayor earlier, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but just Mr. Percy, just asking you which positions are those that you guys are planning on laying off?
Hey, Joel, as stated earlier, that's something that I cannot answer, so that will fall under HR. I wouldn't have an accurate answer for you on that.
Okay. I was looking at the 2019 budget and the proposals from there, and I don't know if I'm reading it wrong. It looked like there was a $14 million revenue. Am I reading that wrong, or is that what we did make in 2019?
In 19, what was budgeted? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
In the
I got the 2019 budget here, but it's what's propping up my camera. So hold on.
Mayor, we can't hear you.
I said you're gonna make me work now, Joel, because I have the 2019 budget here, but it's what was propping up my camera, so I had to move things around.
Mayor, I have it digitally.
Oh, okay. I've already got it.
There's a pie chart in there, and it says 14 million. Like I said, I don't know if I'm reading it wrong, or there's more to it than the pie chart.
There aren't any pie charts in the budget of 2019 that I have. Yeah, there's no revenue in the sewer maintenance fund in the 2019 budget.
Okay. So as far as Electric Bureau, are they doing layoffs as well?
No, the Electric Bureau has like 4 employees or 5 employees.
Mayor,
So
we can hear you.
I said the Electric Bureau has either 4 or 5 employees. They are at an absolute minimum. They cannot be reduced anymore.
Okay, do you know what the building maintenance staff are employed at?
No, and I read the list off to you earlier and all the, oh, here we go. Where they are employed at, they maintain the buildings of the city. So they move around. I mean, sometimes some are deployed specifically to one for a period of time, but no, I can't answer those questions.
Mayor, I think Mr. Collier's original first question was, I think he needed to be reminded of the positions that were going to be eliminated in sewer maintenance.
Okay, we don't have any being eliminated in sewer maintenance. Well, wait a minute.
Yes, we do. We have 2.
Just none in electrical though.
No.
Building maintenance and electrical is one department. So there were two layoffs for building maintenance, which we had already discussed, which was the building maintenance worker 1 and the custodian.
Okay, so no layoffs in sanitation either though, right? Because Parks and Rec and sanitation are 2 departments combined into one.
Specifically, those that are paid through environmental services, no, there was no reduction, there was no elimination of positions from that budget.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm still not.
Oh,
I see. So the wastewater collection operator 1 is actually in the sewer maintenance budget.
Correct.
Got it. So yes, there's a wastewater collection operator 1 and a wastewater collection operator 2 in the sewer maintenance budget that will be reduced.
Okay, and as far as the janitorial, I think there's 4, maybe 3 or 4. I'm not sure. None of them, or is one of them being laid off?
Yes, that's what we just discussed. They're part of building maintenance, and there's 1 custodian position and 1 building maintenance worker 1.
So are you sure if there's 3 or I think there's 4 of them?
You're asking me how many custodians we have budgeted?
Yes. Yeah, I am. Yes, I am. Sorry.
I'd have to look it up for you. Can I shoot you an email?
I don't get my emails. Thank you.
Any other questions from the community? All right, hearing none. Are there any general comments from the budget team tonight?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment. I know Joel had a lot of questions about positions. It might be helpful to come up with something kind of comprehensive to show what positions are being removed from the budget, but what are filled, what aren't, and kind of some type of breakdown. I think that might clarify a lot of his questions, because if you're not part of this on an everyday basis, it can be very confusing.
I think you're right for when we submit the draft budget. These are the draft budget hearings. But when we submit our budget next, I believe it's just next Tuesday, isn't it? Yeah, next Tuesday. Tom, can we have something included there?
Yes, that information has already been shared with their leadership, the union leadership.
Okay. But we have residents that are interested too. So if we can have something like that prepared, that would be great. Thank you for the comment, Madam Controller.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other comments from the budget team? Any other comments from city council members? Thank you, council members, for hanging in there. I know this has been a long one. Tomorrow will not be nearly as long. Any additional comments from community members?
We just got one. Joel, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to thank you guys for giving us the platform to speak to you. And hopefully we continue to move forward and figure something out that'll benefit not only the workers, but also the citizens and everyone else. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, thank you. We'll have this hearing in recess until tomorrow at 6 o'clock, when we'll hear from the fire chief and the police commissioner. And that will be the end of our budget hearing. So hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.